For all those who appreciate the work that we're doing here on Standing for Truth, please hit that subscribe button because we are just getting started.
Hey everybody, today we are discussing creation evolution on trial, and we are starting right now. Ladies and gentlemen, thrilled to have you here for an epic one. I think this is going to be a total blast. We have Creation and Evolution on trial with Kent Hovind and Mark Drisdale, an animal specialist. I think this is going to be a blast, so want to let you know just a few things as we get this debate cracking. First up, if you have any questions, feel free to fire them into the live chat, and I will pull them out, put them in a list, and we will ask them during the Q&A at the end. Also, if this is your first time here, consider hitting that subscribe button as we've got a lot more debates coming up. In fact, we are very excited as we will have a Is Trump Racist debate. That will be a provocative one, very juicy. So we are excited to have a lot more debates coming up. Be sure to hit that little bell notification if you want reminders of when those debates are happening as well. And want to let you know, both of our speakers have their links in the description. So if you are enjoying what you are hearing, you can conveniently click on their links just below that are waiting right down there for you. And with that, we want to say thank you very much to our speakers. This really, it is. Modern day debate is kind of like an abstract entity. It's really the value is from the speakers, the guests that we get to have on. We owe them big time. And so want to ask if you can do us a favor, your questions and super chats that you do send in, if you want to do us a favor, and one, keeping the questions germane to the subject that is being debated today, as well as once in a while we do have a personal attack, believe it or not, in the questions or the super chats. And so we just want to ask if you can respect those people, our guests that we have here today. I feel like I personally owe them because we really appreciate them being here. And also almost forgot to mention that we will have super chats. Basically, it gives you a chance to make a comment or a statement, like citing a study or something that you want to cite. And it'll also go to the very top of the list for the question and answer. So with that, we are thrilled to let this thing get rolling. We have 10 minutes of opening statements. Mark will be going first, followed by 40 minutes of open discussion, and then 10 minutes of Q&A. So with that, thrilled to have you here, gentlemen. Thanks very much for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
You betcha. And one last thing before we do have before we have Mark open it up, we do want to do just a moment of silence, as a lot of you have probably heard that Bill Ludlow has passed on, and so we really do want to let his family know that, if they happen to hear this, as well as his friends, we want to let you know our hearts go out to you. We know it's a very hard time right now, and so we will take a moment of silence just as a way of saying that, our hearts go out to Bill's family and friends. And so that we'll just take that moment of silence just now as a kind of a sign of respect to Bill. So thank you very much, everybody. We're thrilled to have you here. And it's one thing to keep in mind is that though we disagree, we disagree fervently, vigorously, nonetheless, we still hope you know that it's like at the end of the day, it's like we disagree, but we care about each other. And so we are glad that you were here, whether you be Christian, atheist, Republican, Democrat, you name it. We're glad to have you here. So with that, I have got the clock set.
Let her do this, Tammy.
For 10 minutes. And Mark, thanks for being here. The floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, James. So yes, actually I was on the live chat and got to hear about Bill. This is new news for me. It's shooken me a little bit. So if my opening statement's a little off, I got to be honest with you. I've talked to the man a couple times. I had the honor to talk to him on the phone. And it's very disturbing. I did not even know that he was sick. And it's funny because we were sitting in the moment of silence, and I was thinking back to the Kent Hovind Bill Ludlow debate, and thinking back to that and some of the stuff that I'd heard on there. But yes, Bill was a good man. If any of his family's out there, he did a lot of really good work. But in preparing for this debate, I started to look into this is an evolution versus creationism debate. And as I started to look into this more and more, I started to go down more of Kent's rabbit holes that were, I don't even know what word I would use, except basically unbelievable. Most of Kent's beliefs fly in the face of everything that we understand in reality, the real world around us, and just in general, everything that we see happening day in and day out. Kent's beliefs pretty much on everything fly in the face of science, flies in the face of math, flies in the face of physics, and yet he claims to be a 15-year high school teacher, which I really cannot understand. So I'm going to allow Kent today to use his 6 levels of evolution, even though I cannot possibly understand how the beginning of the cosmos has anything to do with the evolution of animals from a single-celled organism all the way up into, if we want to consider man to be the supreme being, into man. But I'm going to allow that for Kent today because I'm hoping to use that in my favor as well when it comes to him trying to explain some of his beliefs back to me. I'm going to use that exact 6, 7, possibly 8 levels of evolution as well. So I hope that the moderator allows that and gives me that free way to kind of use this, in my opinion, a way of using the word evolution that I have never thought of using it before. Some of Kent's beliefs when it comes to the flood, actually, that is obviously going to work its way into this evolution debate, in the fact that after Kent's flood, we only have approximately 4,000 years to produce all of the different cats that we see on Earth today, all the different dogs that we see on Earth, the wolves, all the way from the penguin to the hummingbird. So I'm going to be really interested to hear from Kent, if it's a bird kind, how we can go from a hummingbird to a penguin, which basically flies in water. There's lots of things that I'd like to go over here with Kent. I really hope that we have the time. So I would like to myself donate some of this opening time into just a back and forth discussion, because I know Kent always says that he wants to do this question by question. He doesn't like it when we do the Gish Gallop or the Hovind Hustle, as Tony called it last week, I believe. So yeah, at that point, I would just like to say that everything that I know about animals is completely polar opposites to the way Kent believes that animals have gotten to the point that where they're at today, the amount of species that we have, the possibility of 1.3 billion species of terrestrial animals fitting on an ark, how we could possibly handle the ammonia, how we could possibly handle the amount of heat that many animals would produce. We're up here in Canada, and in the winter, to keep our kangaroos and zebras warm, we will put a few cows in our barn. So you've got 1,000 square foot barn, we'll put 10 cows in it, and it'll more than keep that barn at 55 to 60 degrees on a -5-degree day. So I'd like to hear from Kent where that heat went from, or went to. We know where it came from, but I'd like to know where it went to when, from everything that I've read in the Bible, I believe there was one door and one window. So I'm thinking that must have been one hell of a window. So yeah, let's get into the discussion portion. I want Kent to, start his mantra here of dogs produce dogs and everything else that we've heard back and forth, but I'm sure he'll take his time to do that. And let's hear about the dogs, Kent, and then we'll get into the back and forth.
Well, thank you, sir. You donate your time to me. I appreciate that.
There you go.
The Bible says pretty clearly, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. God is claiming that he did it. And in John chapter 1, it says, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. All things were made by him. And we see later that the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. So the book of John certainly teaches that Jesus was God in the flesh and that he created all things. Colossians 1 repeats that. By him, that's Jesus, were all things created in heaven and earth. So your position obviously is saying that the Bible is wrong, or Jesus is lying, or both. Jesus claimed he was God Almighty in the flesh, and I happen to believe that. And Jesus said, have you not read that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female, which was obviously Adam and Eve. So I think everybody that knows the Bible would certainly say, whether they believe it or not, the Bible teaches the creation of Adam and Eve was the beginning. We see that in Mark 10:6 and Matthew 19:4. So Jesus said the creation of the beginning was when God made Adam and Eve, And the Bible clearly teaches that man brought death into the world, whereas your religion of evolution teaches death brought man into the world. Death is a wonderful thing. All the inferiors have to die so that the superior one can take over the gene code. And that is Adolf Hitler 101, in my humble, totally unbiased opinion. So the Bible says that man brought death into the world, not death brought man into the world. So Jesus said the creation of Adam and Eve was the beginning. The Bible says nothing died till Adam sinned. And the evolution theory is in complete opposition to that. And I don't know how anybody can believe the evolution theory. So let me skip a few things here. I just want to point out that certainly the Bible does teach the earth is about 6,000 years old. It says Adam was the first man, and he lived 130 years and had a son, and that boy lived 105 and he lived 90. You can make a chart and graph it out, like many people have seen my chart. And it clearly comes to about 4,000 BC for the creation. And then 16 or 1700 years later, a big flood in the days of Noah. So the textbooks, though, teach the kids the earth is 4.543 billion years old. Somebody is seriously wrong on their math. Is it 6,000 or 4.543 billion years old? And 6 weeks since I got the slide. Okay. So textbook says earth is thought to have formed 4.6 billion years ago. Jesus said the creation of Adam was the beginning. So was he lying? Did he not understand science? Or could it even possibly be that he was right? Now, the topic of the debate tonight is the meaning of this word evolution. And I think this is where all the confusion comes in. What does that word evolution mean? The textbook says life too has evolved on earth. Wait. What does this word evolve mean? And I spell out, and you asked if we could discuss the meaning of the word evolution. I break it up into 6 categories, and so does the internet, and so do the textbooks. The first one is cosmic evolution, the origin of time, space, matter. Where did time, space, and matter come from? Before you can have any evolution from an amoeba to a whale, you have to have space for this to happen in. You have to have matter, and you have to have time. You guys want to start the clock, time, at about 13.7 billion years ago. Well, what was before that? Or was there a before that? Where did time come from? Who created time? Who's created space? Who created matter? The textbooks and the internet certainly talk a lot about cosmic evolution, why cosmic evolution matters. There's an article, Cosmic Evolution from Big Bang to Humankind. This is certainly part of the evolution theory, the Big Bang where nothing exploded and produced time, space, matter, according to the theory. Access this today. What is the theory of cosmic evolution? Simply defined, this is from physicalcentral.com. Cosmic evolution is the study of change, the vast number of developmental and generative changes that have accumulated during all time and across all space, from Big Bang to humankind. So there is such a thing as cosmic evolution. Secondly, there would have to be what we call chemical evolution. All the elements would have to arise from the so-called hydrogen gas that came from this Big Bang. A third theory of life's origin is known as chemical evolution. In this idea, pre-biological changes slowly transform simple atoms and molecules into the more complex chemicals needed to produce. How do you get from, there's no such thing, by the way, as a simple molecule, but how do you get from a single, like hydrogen, to uranium or platinum or gold or silver? Man, if you can turn hydrogen gas into gold or silver, I'd like to know how to do that. I think a lot of people would love to do it. I think all the alchemists in the 13th century tried that. There's access today. Chemical evolution, the formation of complex organic molecules from simpler inorganic molecules through chemical reactions, from dictionary.com. Oh, the internet is full of it. You just Google chemical evolution, you get thousands and thousands of results from that, okay? So according to the Big Bang theory, the Big Bang produced hydrogen gas and maybe a little bit of helium and maybe some lithium or deuterium. And then how do you get this to evolve? Where's the energy coming from to change this into the higher elements? There's a real problem. You can't fuse past iron. I think people that understand the fusion of lower chemicals to higher elements realize this can't happen without way more input than you get for your results. So it's just, I think chemical evolution is a giant stumbling block for those who believe in evolution. That's why they want to skip over all of this and go straight to once life gets started. They're very embarrassed because they cannot explain the first 3, I think the first 4. Number 3, stellar and planetary evolution. Obviously, we're all standing or sitting on a large planet called Earth, about 8,000 miles in diameter, 7926, depending if you're equatorial or polar. But It bulges a little bit, the equator, so do I, but that's a different story. Stellar and planetary evolution. How did the stars and planets get here? Nobody's ever seen a star form, but the internet is full, and so are the textbooks. I've got them all behind me here. Earth science and physical science textbooks talk about stellar evolution, the process by which a star changes over the course of time, depending on the mass of the star. Stellar evolution. Fuel consumption stages and their finality is important because it's responsible for the production of most of the elements after helium and hydrogen. Really? So this was accessed a few months ago, or last month. They do indeed teach stellar evolution. And yet those who are experts in science will say, we don't know how a single star managed to form. How did the stars form? Nobody has a clue. Why do stars evolve? Western Michigan University. Short answer is because changes in a star's core, where fusion is occurring, must result in changes throughout the rest of the star, including the surface. That's not an answer. That's a theory. That's a story. Stellar evolution. You can just Google that. They talk about the life cycle of stars, starting from a stellar nebula and slowly either turning into an average star or a massive star. The internet is full of this, and so is the text. That's my objection. This isn't science. We've never seen any star evolving into anything else. We've certainly never seen the production of a star out of a gas cloud. The origin of stars is one of the most fundamental unsolved problems of contemporary physics. Stars are born out of the gravitational collapse of cool, dense molecular clouds. You tell the author of this one at swin.edu.au, I think they're either stupid or lying. Nobody has ever seen a cloud of dust or gas accumulate into a solid. You're a mechanical engineer, so was my dad and brother. Gas clouds expand. You have to contain them in containers. They don't collect automatically. They don't have any gravitational attraction to collect into a solid. This is absolutely physically impossible. It doesn't happen. But they claim it did a whole bunch of times because there's a lot of stars out there. Everybody on Earth could own 11 trillion of them to yourself. Stars are formed in giant gas clouds of dust and gas. This is simply a lie, or somebody's extremely stupid about mechanics. Gases, there's Boyle's gas laws. You cannot squeeze those into a solid without enormous input. It's hard to compress gases and to make just a liquid. Check liquid nitrogen, see what they got to do. No one understands how star formation proceeds. It's really remarkable, Scientific American said years ago. But we see stars blow up, nova or supernova. That happens quite often. That's been seen many times, okay? How many stars are there in the universe? Well, you can Google that and see 70 billion trillion, that is 70 sextillion stars is the current estimate of stars visible from Earth with our current telescopes. And I guess enough stuff to go for 4 days on that one. The Bible claims very clearly that God simply made the stars, and he did it on day 4, which would be after the Earth was made. This exact opposite order of what the evolution theory teaches. And God told Abraham, look to the stars. If you can count the stars, you'll be able to count your offspring and descendants. And all the Jews and Arabs and several other nations over there are descendants of good old Father Abraham. Current estimate is 70 sextillion stars, they say maybe 3 times more than that, are in the observable universe. That's enough for everybody to own 11 trillion to themselves. That means if there are 70 sextillion stars and the universe has been here 13 billion years, you do the math, we should see 9.7 million new stars forming every minute. Every minute should be 9.7 million new stars. Now, the atheist's obvious way out of this is to say, well, it all happened already before we got here. So we're not here to observe it because it happened before we got here. That's seconds. Real convenient. My point is this is not science. This is something somebody believes in. Number 4 is organic evolution. We lost our slide there, James. Are you still on screen there?
Yep, I still see you.
But does everybody see the slides?
Yeah, I definitely see your
Does
slides.
everybody in the audience see the slides? I know you see them. Does everybody else see them is the question.
I'm looking at the...
Something changed. Okay. Anyway, organic evolution is the origin of life. Those of you who would like to believe in this evolution religion have to somehow find a way for non-living material to come alive. The theories of organic evolution explains convincing the origin of life.
And
it also explains how the...
Forgive me. That was 10 minutes. So if you guys...
Wait, he gave me some of his minutes, though, didn't he?
Oh, I think it
No,
was.
I want that to go into discussion. I've heard all this evolution stuff before too. We'll talk about the evolution of cars, the evolution of square wheels to round wheels.
Okay.
The word evolution can be put in front of anything and can be made an argument for it.
All right.
So I guess it would be my turn to answer him. So for one thing, if you want to go see stars being born, go to the baby boom cluster. They're showing that many stars are being formed there. I forget what the number was. I believe it was around 30 a day they're watching, and it's called the baby boom cluster. Right there, you'll see some stars being made. How did we end up with things over iron? That's just obvious. It would be the Big Bang Theory would tell us exactly what we see on Earth. We would expect there to be a lot of iron. We'd expect a lot of stuff to be fused up to the point of iron. And then we'd expect the rest of the stuff to be much harder to find. Much less of it we would find on Earth. And that's exactly what we find. We find lots and lots of iron. Our center core is made out of iron, tons of iron. Lots of stars forming, lots of iron being produced. You get into your supernovas, you get into things exploding. That's where you get your heavy elements. We know this. We've been through this. We've understood this now for, I believe, almost 100 years. I'm not sure why the creationists don't know it. What were some of your other evolution stuff there? You had a simple molecule. I've heard you talk about this before, Kent, how there's no such thing as a simple molecule, that the single cell is more complex than a space shuttle. Nothing could be further from the truth. I'm a machinist. I worked on one of the valves with a company out of Fort Erie called Aerosafe. And we made a valve it was a hydraulic valve that worked for the landing gear. It worked for a bunch of the hydraulic systems. And when we were done building that part and putting all the coordinates that were needed in telling those tools where to go to drill those holes on a 5-axis machine, we almost took up a terabyte of information. So that is, if you want to look at information as complexity, that is telling the tool where to go, how fast the tool's to travel, how deep it's to cut into the material, where it's to cut in, where it's to tap the thread, what the pitch of the thread will be. And that was up in the terabytes. We know that we can fit the whole genome of a human being on a 750 megabyte CD-ROM. I'm not a computer guy, but I think that's about what they are. And I've been told that you can easily fit our entire genome onto a single CD-ROM. Kent, I'll let you go from there because there's just so much stuff here that, like I said, flies in the face of what we know. So go at it again for a little bit, and then let's try to get more into a one-on-one. There's a lot of stuff that I missed here. Yeah, you had the simple molecule, you had the energy coming in. The Big Bang Theory is very solid. I really don't know where there's confusion in the Big Bang Theory. If we want to move that over towards the claim that you have, that the evolutionists are always trying to push time and get more time for their prince to turn, or their frog to turn into a prince, nothing could be further from the truth. You tell us it's 20 billion years that scientists say since the Big Bang, and actually we're closer to the 13, 14 billion years. So we're continuing to take time away, Ken. We're not asking for more time. And then when it comes to anything beyond simple life, just give us 750 million years. We don't need billions. We had simple single-celled life up to 700 million years ago. That's when we say that life really started to take hold and start crawling out of the ocean, starting to build the trees. Yeah, that's when complexity started, 750 million years ago. We don't need the 12 billion years. Tell you what, you can have 11 billion of those years back, and we're still good with building the life that we have on Earth today, and its complexity and its variation. Go ahead.
Okay, you said you made hydraulic valves and it took a terabyte of information. Is there any possibility that those valves could have made themselves without intelligent input? A terabyte's a lot of information.
Oh yeah, it's huge, and it's a lot of coordinates, and that's what I'm saying. That space shuttle is an extremely complex piece of machinery with a lot of coordinates. So if you just look at it on the on the point of how much information is needed to build something. In the world of machining, when you get down into machining things to a tenth of a thou, like a lot of the stuff was on the space shuttle, you're talking huge amounts of information. So I would completely disagree that the space shuttle is less complex than a single cell. To me, a single cell is a bunch of chemicals. It's a bunch of chemicals put together in different ways. I understand that we assign letters to those chemicals, but I do not see it as completely impossible as what you do.
Well, I guess I'm asking, could the valves that you build for the hydraulics on the space shuttle, could they have possibly happened by chance, or did it take some intelligent input?
Oh, absolutely. It takes intelligent input. Yes, absolutely, Kent. But I don't know where you're going to go with on that one. Well, I know exactly where you're going to go. I've heard it before.
You don't think there's intelligent input on making a cell?
No, absolutely not. No, I don't think.
But there is intelligent input on making. So, do you believe the valves on the space shuttle hydraulic were designed by somebody with some level of intelligence? Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. Do you think the whole space shuttle was designed by some intelligent people?
Absolutely. I don't think there's anyone that's going to disagree with that.
Okay.
We see it every day.
Do you think your brain was designed by anybody with any intelligence?
Absolutely not.
You may be right on that one.
My mom and dad pulled her together. That's for sure.
Okay. Well, the DNA code to make the human brain, which is capable of holding a whole bunch of information, is unbelievably complex. Just because the code only can all fit on a CD-ROM, I don't know that that's true. It's interesting. I don't think we completely understand the DNA code because it's three-dimensional, and it not only three-dimensional, but just the loops, where it loops around and touches itself again, carries more information. All of our computer codes, I think nearly all of our computer codes, carry with just a 2-bit, plus minus or yes, no, on off switching of the binary code that all of our computer language is written in, yet DNA code is written in a 4-letter code, CATG, which makes it multiple levels of more complexity than simple binary code. So I have to disagree. I still would stick by my statement that a single cell in your body is more complex than the space shuttle. I think you would quickly agree that the space shuttle had to have a designer, but you don't think a cell had to have a designer. Do you think all the cells in your body and my body and all the animals in the world, all of that was fit into a dot smaller than a period on a page? Is that your position?
Oh, absolutely. We see it right now. We see it in black holes. We have no problems with singularities. We understand them completely. There's no problems with figuring out singularities. And if you actually think about it on the molecular level, think about how little matter is in an atom. There's nothing in it. 99.9998% empty space. I think there's more zeros to throw in there, but yeah, I have absolutely no problems with compressing things down to that point. And you're not really talking compressing when you get to the singularity. There's a lot more to it than that. There's the temperatures, there's a lot of stuff going on. So it's not as simple as just to say, will my Chevy van fit inside of a space as small as a dot on a page? That is just a dishonest way of looking at a very complex situation, which is what we get into when we talk about the singularity. But yes, we see it already. We know what goes on in a black hole, and your Chevy van would fit nicely in a black hole, and it would become smaller than a dot on a page. I guarantee it.
Well, years ago I heard that a mile-long freight train, just by removing the space in the atoms between the electrons, a mile-long freight train would probably fit in a thimble. That's used to be the illustration they would use. But you're saying all of the stars, all of the planets, all of the life forms on Earth were inside a singularity. Is that your position?
Yeah, I have no problems with that at all. Absolutely no problems with it. We know exactly what would happen. We know that as far as we know, there's no limit to the amount of energy that we can put into a system. The only time that the math starts to break down is when we get to the Planck frequency, which is the maximum theoretical amount of energy that you can put into a space. But yeah, nothing starts to break down. That's where we're fitting God in a lot of times, is where the math starts to break down when we get into very complex mathematical situations, but trying to visualize a Chevy van fitting into a dot on a period of a page. Of course, it's not intuitive, but we're not talking about standard atmospheric conditions here on Earth where we're dealing with the strong force, the weak force, the electromagnetic force, and gravity. We're talking about gravity here beyond anything that anyone could imagine. And that is what we see right now in a black hole. So yes, you take even more matter and put it into a black hole, you're even going to get more of a dense spot. I have absolutely no problems envisioning singularity, and I don't think science has any problems with it anymore whatsoever either.
When you say that's what you see in a black hole, has anybody ever seen? Do you see?
No, we don't fly around and go into black holes, but we know what's going on. We know light can't get out, and we have a pretty good idea of what's going on in there. So yeah, you know, I don't know if anyone's actually figured out exactly. I know no one's been in one, that's for sure, because you get into one, you're not getting out.
Hold on, I thought we all came from one. We all did get out.
Well, something happened, didn't it? Something pushed time forward and caused the irradiation to do exactly what it did, and here we are today. And yes, you know, I know we're supposed to get into evolution here, but I guess we needed somewhere to put the animals first, didn't we?
Well, yes. So all of the matter in the universe, in your, and it is a religion, in your religion, all of the matter in the universe was in this black hole, and all of the energy. How much total energy would there be? What's the total? You're an engineer. What would the total number of joules be of all the universe, all the stars, everything?
Well, like I said, it doesn't matter what it is, but we know there's no limit to the amount of energy that we can put into a system. That's just a fact. We know that. So whatever the number ends up being is what the number ends up being. All that eventually starts to happen is as the temperature goes up, the frequency goes up, and you get the Planck length of a frequency. So that will be where the math will start to break down, is when we get to the point where the energy is so high in frequency that the math will start to break down. That is the only point and that is where, unfortunately, the young Earth creationists always try to slide their gods in, is when our math breaks down, when our understanding breaks down, and you're always trying to fit these gods into these areas that we don't understand. You did it thousands of years ago when you know, a man would come home and find out that his wife, children, babies, everybody was dead. It must have been something that he did wrong. No, it was a virus. No, it was a plague. It was a parasite. It was whatever took out his family. We know that now. So now we no longer have gods that are punishing us for our day-to-day deeds by taking our families. We understand what's going on. It's the same as floods. It's the same as lightning. It's the same as when a monsoon comes through. We understand now where these things are coming from. Kent, there is absolutely no doubt that we still have work to do. You've heard this time and time again. I bet you I've heard every single one of your debates, and there is no doubt there's holes. We have a lot to work on. But at the same time, I just cannot stand the fact that, you know, there's people like yourself. And when I say like yourself, I do say it with a bit of respect, because you are passionate about what you do. But you continue to look for these holes of things that we don't understand and think it's the I got you moment, and it's really not.
Okay, you have used the word we probably several hundred times already tonight. We know this, we know that, we see this. Would you agree that nobody has ever actually seen a black hole? You obviously, if no light is escaping, this is something nobody can see such a thing.
Oh no, we've seen things go in. Actually, I believe it was about 2 months ago, I heard that two black holes had joined up, and we got to see I forget what they called it, but it was something to do with the gravitational waves. We got to experience the gravitational waves from these two black holes combining. And from what I remember reading a little bit on the paper, it was almost exactly mathematically what they expected it to be. And it was by a complete fluke that we even ended up seeing it, because they built this machine to detect these gravitational waves, and they just had it on just by chance, both of them, because there's one on one side of the country and one on the other side. I'm taking this out of memory. It was just something I glazed over quickly. And yeah, it pretty much proved again that the scientific method worked perfectly. We predicted it, and it happened, and it was very close to the measurements that we had expected.
I guess I'd be real curious to see how you could see a gravitational wave.
Well, they measure them.
Measure it with what?
Well, they measured it with these huge machines that they built. Have you not seen these? Like, you got to check into this stuff, Kent. These people are working diligently to build these machines to further our knowledge, and that is the program that they're working on. Google it. These gravitational wave
Sure, sure.
detectors that they've built. They've built one on one side of the country. They built one somewhere else. I don't know if it's in Canada. I don't know where it is, but these things are, I believe they're about 3 or 4 kilometers long, and they're just detecting the difference of the gravitational wave as it goes across this long, I don't even know what it is, could be a shaft. I don't pretend to know things that I don't know about, but when I see things that interest me, I read a little bit about it, just enough to say, oh, that was interesting. But that doesn't mean that it's not real. It just means that now you need to go Google it, look up these machines that they built. They're not machines, they're detectors, and you will see exactly how they measure gravitational waves. And yes, these waves are infinitely small, and they're so blown away that they could do it. And that's the part, Kent, that really bothers me about your worldview, is that this work that we, yes, it's we, the people who want to know, are looking into, we're finding these things and we're learning these things, and it's exciting. It's more exciting than anything that magic could ever give me.
Well, you can certainly include me in one of those who wants to know and wants to understand. I
Do
just
you,
have a hard
Kent?
time.
Do you really want to know?
I really do. I
Okay,
really
that's
want.
good.
I, I
That's
really
good.
want to. I really want to understand how you, as an animal behaviorist, can believe dogs, all the 339 recognized breeds of dogs in the world today, came from a single-celled creature, like something like an amoeba. You do believe that, don't you?
Oh, absolutely, Kent. And the funny thing is, I've heard you talking about dogs become dogs for so long that there is no better representation of dogs when it comes to evolution. Just look at your chart, Kent. We have dogs that weigh less than a pound, all the way up to dogs that weigh 250, 270 pounds. We have dogs that can specialize in smelling. We have dogs that specialize in swimming. We have dogs that specialize in running. You always talk about, if they want a faster horse, why don't they get a horse? You know, all we've been able to do is to get it to run 5 miles an hour faster, which is an incredible feat over 150 years or whatever they've done it. But right in your picture, right there, Kent, you've got dogs that can maybe run, what, 15 kilometers an hour all the way up to the ground. The greyhound, which is, I believe, is up around the 45, 50 mile an hour area. So there's a huge divergence in the gene pool right in front of you. So you're very dogs only produce dogs, which is wrong. It's wolves produce dogs. But it right there is evolution 101 if I've ever seen it. And I just don't know how you don't see it that way.
Well, I think I see it even more clearly than you do. You said there's dogs from 1 pound up to 270 pounds. I would agree.
Yep.
Do you think they'll ever be able to crossbreed dogs and get a dog as up to 3 ton?
Well, why would they want to, though? What would be the natural? What would be the natural advantage for a dog that weighs 3 tons, unless you're trying to hold down a building in a windstorm? I just don't understand where a dog of 3 tons would make sense in the natural world. Do you understand what evolution is? Evolution is trying to exist in a way that works in nature. So where would a 3-ton dog, and next you're going to say, can we get one the size of a flea? Where would these dogs fit in? Where would their niche be? And what would be the advantage of a 3-ton, or was it 3 tons or 3,000? I don't even know what you said there, Ken. But yeah, I think it's usually the size of Texas. But yeah, in this case, a 3-ton dog has no purpose.
Well, I'm trying to get you to understand. There are 3-ton animals on the planet, like elephants.
Absolutely. And where are they?
So it is possible for an animal to weigh 3 tons.
But Ken, where are these 3-ton animals you're talking about? They're in the ocean.
No, there's elephants. I believe elephants get up to, they live on land.
Okay.
I don't know if the number's right. Let's just pick a number and say it's probably up to 6,000 pounds.
Okay.
Certainly. They're huge.
Absolutely.
And there have been bigger animals than that. There have been brachiosaurs and we find the bones of them. They probably weighed 100 tons.
Right.
So there are mammals and reptiles and land-dwelling animals that get up to 100 tons. So I'm trying to get you to see, is there a limit to dogs? why can't they get a 700-pound dog? Don't ask me why do we need one. There are animals that weigh 700 pounds. There are animals that weigh 3 tons. There are animals that used to weigh 100 tons. So is there a limit to dogs? Is there something in the dog gene code that says you can go from 1 pound to 270, but you can't go beyond? Is there a limit at all?
Well, for example, you look at a dog, okay? So you're comparing let's say we'll go back to the elephant. The elephant stands on its feet flat. So an elephant has a completely different stand than what a dog does. A dog's a digigate, so it's up on its toes, it's standing. Where are you going to get to the point where those toes are going to hold up a 3-ton dog? Just like your 900-year-old man, at a certain point, just the way a dog is put together, it's not going to work. It's going to start to fail. The structure is just not made to be a 3,000-pound animal. And that's really all there is to it. It really is that simple, Kent. That foot that you're looking at there, if you look at that Great Dane, looking at that Chihuahua or whatever kind of dog that is its heel that's 6 inches up its back. That's why it has a dew claw there. It is up on its toes like a ballerina, and it would not make sense that dog would be able to hold much more weight than the 300 pounds that we see as a maximum level for dogs.
Well, 2 things. First of all, elephants do walk on their toes constantly. They have a large fat pad under their
different design though. Completely different design.
Whoa. Hold it. A different what?
Design? It's a different design. Absolutely a different design.
Is that a slip of the tongue? It's not a design then. It's by chance, right?
No, it's a design. Absolutely, it's a design. Nature designed it. Yeah.
Nature
I have no problems telling you design, Ken. I'll give you design all day long. Nature is a great designer of animals. It's been doing it for hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years, and it'll continue designing animals for us.
I'm sure you believe that. Well, so you said it's not going to work, it's going to fail if you get a dog up to a certain weight limit. So I'm going to try to interpret your answer for you to understand yourself. You're saying, and which I asked you at the beginning, is there a limit? And you are saying, yes, there is a limit to dog size.
The way the dog is put together right now, yes, I would say there's a limit. Just like with man, there's a limit to the amount of age that we can live to. We cannot live to 900 years. Impossible.
Well, probably not today.
Never.
Never. Okay.
Never.
But were there animals that got up to 100 tons like this guy?
Yes, absolutely.
So there wasn't a limit for the 100 tons then. I mean,
have you seen the bones in their legs?
Oh yeah, I've got some replicas of them here. They're huge.
Absolutely. Right. So you got to think about what a dog did back in the day. A dog was a chaser. A dog had to be able to hunt down prey. It had to be able to go out and run fast. There was no advantage for it to weigh that way. So the body was put together very streamlined. It's put together very athletically. I know you continually put down small dogs as being useless, but they were even bred for a reason. They fit into small holes. They were able to go in. They were able to pull rabbits out of a hole. Dogs are a great example of evolution, Kent. Absolute. One of the best examples we got. I would say the only thing that we even have close to the proof for evolution beyond dogs would be the cat species. It's also very diverse if you look at what we've done with cats.
Okay, do you think animal breeders such as yourself will ever be able to get the dogs of any kind to produce something that would be considered a non-dog?
To consider it to be a non-dog, how much time do you got, Kent? Because it's happening right now. I just read a story this morning on things called sea wolves. Yes, write that down. Sea wolves. They're out in BC. They are spending up to 90% of their day in the water. They are getting 75% of their food out of the oceans, and they're able to swim up to, I believe it said 7.5 miles from island to island. And this is how they have found a spot in nature that had an opening, and they're eking out a living doing exactly that. They are living in the ocean. Their bodies are changing, their noses are changing, their ears are changing, their tails are getting shorter, their feet are getting more webbed. And this they have been watching for the last 50 years. And that it was on a science paper. It went out today. I read it this morning. Okay. And they're calling it the sea wolf in BC.
I will certainly. It's British Columbia finding it.
British Columbia, Canada.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is a sea wolf. Is it still considered in the dog family,
Well,
canine?
it's still considered in the dog family, but is the wolf in the dog family? Is the jackal in the dog family? Where are we going to draw the line? Because this is the dishonesty of the young Earth creationist view. You try to tell us what we say things are, and Kent, you know that we never say that a dog will produce a cat. You're not allowed to go back down the tree, and I want you to remember this in future debates. You are never allowed to go down the tree. You've got the roots, you got the trunk, you got the branches, you got the leaves, Kent. You can never have a leaf produce another leaf. It will only move forward from there. You cannot climb down the branch and up another branch and have a dog make a cat. That is absolutely impossible. So whatever the dog becomes in the future is what time will do to it. Look at how much it's changed in the last 10,000 years. That's how long we've been breeding dogs. We've done that in 10,000 years. I have 700 million years to produce what we have on Earth right now. And that's all I need. I don't need 12 billion. Never needed it.
Okay,
I'm
first of all,
I'm surprised no one's called you out on that before, because we only need the 700 million that we've continually claimed. Look it up. That's when it really started to explode. That's when all the single cell turned into the complex stuff that we have now. That's where it all started up.
well, I think we could
Not
argue
12
about
billion years.
I don't think you can get 700 million either. I could go through geophysical reasons why that's not possible. The
I
Earth
can't think of
rolling,
one.
slowing its spin. Anyway, so you're
What's the
never
Earth
allowed to go
slowing
down
its
the
spin
tree.
have to do with anything, Ken?
It puts a time limit on how old the Earth can be. The Earth is slowing down
How much is it slowing down, though?
about 1,000th of a second per day.
So where's our problem? For one thing, it's not linear. We know that. I've talked to you. I've heard you talk about.
It makes it worse when it's geometric. It makes it much worse, logarithmic.
Why is that?
Well, any
Like
spinning
we
object.
know how old the universe is. So there's something wrong with your view, Kent. That's all that we can say about it. So
We don't
you're
know.
the one that has to tell us why we're wrong, that it's not almost 13 or 14 billion years old, this universe, and why the Earth isn't 4.54 and why the sun isn't 5 or 6 billion years old. You got to tell us why. You just can't say that because it's slowing down X, and that's just impossible.
Well,
There is nothing we see in nature that would give us a time limit that I've ever known about or ever looked into. And if you can tell me one, I'd be shocked.
Okay, well, my video number 1 covers about 50 of the scientific limits on the age of the Earth or the universe, but that's not the topic of this debate. So, did all the dogs in the world? You said they're always going to be dog, which is what I've said over and over. And I believe probably the dog, the wolf, and the coyote are in the same family and probably had a common ancestor on Noah's Ark. But I do not believe the dog is related to the amoeba or the banana or the whale, but you do.
If absolutely.
Okay, so if we start with a single cell creature, let's say it's an amoeba, did the amoeba eventually become a non-amoeba?
Did it eventually evolve to try to figure out a way to live on whatever substance it could find and eke out a living? Absolutely. Ken, what you don't realize, and I've heard you talk about this a lot, and a really good example is take, for example, the cheetah. The cheetah is running right around the 50-mile-an-hour area. So you've got cheetahs running at 50. We have the elk running at approximately 51 miles an hour. Well, not only are the cheetahs trying to get faster and the elk trying to get faster, but in the background, you've also got another group of elk that are getting shorter, and they're able to make a living and live by hiding in the grass. You've also got elk that are changing color, and they're being successful that way. There's not just one route that an animal or a species will take to try to make a living, to try to find a way to live. So it will not just be a balance where, a cat will get up to 51 miles an hour, the elk will get up to 52, so the 52-mile-an-hour elk will live. There's so much more going on in nature. Nature always tries to find a way, and that's where you end up with the different species. You don't just end up with one. So you will get one that's trying to run faster and faster, but you'll also get a species that's trying to get shorter and shorter, slower and slower, and its life is dependent on it being able to hide in the grass and just not getting pegged off as much by the cheetahs.
Well, instead of the cheetah slowly learning to run faster to catch the elk, Why doesn't the cheetah learn to eat grass? The elk eats grass, and grass can't run very fast at all. It wouldn't have to
Because
run at
it's
all, just eat the grass.
incredibly inefficient food source. Have you ever
The elks
watched a
do fine
cow?
on it. Elks are lots bigger than a cheetah, and they live
And
on
you know what it
plants.
does all day long? It eats all day, Ken. You watch a
It does
horse, it
fine.
barely sleeps. Yeah, it may do fine, but Ken, that's something. Why don't you eat grass? You will have to stand out in a field all day and eat grass to get enough of what you need, and you will never get enough. Meat eaters are meat eaters, period. We need the proteins, we need
Right.
the vitamins, we need the minerals, we need meat. That's all there is to it. That's how we know that animals have always ate meat. There's no way that they were ever vegetarians. That's just not even a
Well,
possibility.
now hold it. Would you agree that elephants are pretty big and they live on vegetation?
And that's all they do all day, Kent. They eat.
Is that
That's
bad?
all they do. They eat and they move slow. So you got to decide what you're going to do. If you want to drive around in a Dodge K car going 2 miles an hour, guess what? You don't have to put very much gas in it. If you want to be an active lion, tiger, anything that moves at a reasonable speed and doesn't want to spend its whole day eating, you better figure out a food source that has a hell of a lot more protein in it and a way to get that protein fast, eat, get it done, and get on with life.
Well, there are some huge animals in the sea and on land, like really huge, that live on pure plant life. So
all
it
they
can
do,
be
Ken.
done.
That
What's
is
that?
all they do. That is all they do. They eat. That
all
is
they
their
do is
life.
eat.
Watch a horse.
I think elephants can run pretty fast, and I don't think that's all they do. There are baby elephants out there, you know. They must be doing something somewhere.
They
So
eat.
that's it.
I'm not a
That's
word
it.
of a lie. I'm not making this up, Ken. They really do. Horses eat all day. Cows eat all day. It's a very inefficient way to eat. It's a very inefficient way to get the food that you need. And so guess what? The lions, us, all the smarter animals, we'll let those guys go out there. We'll let them eat all day, and then we'll eat them and get all the advantage of the thousands and thousands of hours of eating that they did to get that body mass up, get the protein and the minerals and vitamins into their body, and then we'll eat them in 5 minutes and get on with our day. And that is really honestly it.
Right now, you're aware of the lion that was named Little Tyke they used in movies quite a bit that never would eat meat, refused to eat meat, lived on plants.
How long did it live?
Finally got killed in a movie accident, I think. A full-grown lion, African lion. Just type in Little Tyke, Tyke. There's an article on creation.com about it. It's been studied intently. They said it refused to eat any kind of meat or even blood. They tried as a baby to give it a little bit of blood in the milk, wouldn't take it. Grew to be huge, I think 11 feet long. But that's not the point. Elephants are bigger than that. Okay, so all the elephants and all the tigers and all the cheetahs were in a dot that exploded. And over millions of years, somewhere along the line, because I say dogs produce dogs, and you guys get mad at me for saying that, but it's the obvious truth. But somewhere, if you go backwards in time, if you run the clock backwards, when was the dog a non-dog? Where's the 95? Huh?
When it was a wolf.
Okay, let's put dog, wolf, coyote in the same group. When was that family not in the dog category or wolf category? Where's the 95%?
Well, Ken,
dog or
pull
wolf?
up the pictures of your dog again and show me 100% dog. Which one's 100%? Which one's 95? They're all changing. They're all becoming different dogs. Which one's 100% a dog?
I'd say
I know you don't think
those.
I know you don't
dog.
think a child's 100% dog because you think it's useless. So tell me where I know you don't like little dogs. So there you go. You tell me right there that that's not 100% dog. And I bet you think that Great Dane's 100% dog. What is 100% of anything? What is 100% of a primate? Monkeys are 100% primate, and so are we. I really don't know where you're going with this. To try to put these abstract numbers onto something and say something that can be 100% this or 100% that, it's really not the way that it works. Obviously, a dog is a dog. We're looking at two dogs here. They have every single thing that each dog has. They both have. It doesn't matter their size. So I'm not, again, sure what you're getting at.
Well, I agree. They're both 100% dog. I do think probably useless, but that's just a joke mostly, okay? But they are technically interfertile. Might be a few mechanical problems, but the Chihuahua could impregnate the Great Dane if she cooperated, or the other way around, might kill the Chihuahua, but they have the same number of chromosomes. They're still dog. And I think everybody would agree that nearly all of the dog varieties we have in the world today probably did not exist 500 years ago. They were created for man's pleasure, either for hunting or lap dogs or something like that, or guard dogs. A trait was selected that was already in the gene code. It's already in the gene code to have dogs have sensitive smell. So they would focus on that to get tracking bloodhounds. Okay, they're still a dog. They didn't create a Geiger counter in the thing. It still only has a sense of smell, but they focused by selective breeding, selected a dog with a better sense of smell. I can understand, but there are limits to this. This is what you guys refuse to admit. There are limits to the size of the dog. There are limits to the age a dog's going to live. There are limits to the sensitivity of its smell. Let's say, I don't know what the numbers are, but let's say a bloodhound can smell 1 molecule per 20,000. Okay. Okay, there's probably the limit. I don't think they're going to get much better than that. Maybe you can get a dog like a greyhound that can run, say, 45 miles an hour. Okay. Could they get one to run 200 miles an hour? There are animals like the hawk that can go 200 miles an hour. Why don't we get a dog to go 200?
Well, in a dive, but okay. So here we go again. So I guess what you're saying is that we never see anything. We don't see things getting more complex. We see them getting simpler. Is that what you're basically getting at here?
No, I'm saying we don't see them getting new information.
New information. Okay. So here we go, Ken. If that was the case, you know what we'd be doing? We'd all be walking wolves down the street. So why aren't we using wolves to track? Why aren't we using wolves to sniff things out? Why aren't we using wolves to go out and if there's no new information, if these dogs that are known as sniffing dogs, why aren't we using wolves? Why didn't we just breed them once for friendliness and just use a wolf for everything? And by the way, a wolf can only run at about 20 miles an hour. So a greyhound has it by almost 2.5 times.
Right. Question. Greyhound has it by 2.5 times. That has been selectively bred for speed. If you turned all the greyhounds in the world loose into the woods, would they survive?
Would we?
Would the greyhounds survive in the wild, or do they have to be babysat by a human to keep them alive?
4 minutes. 4 minutes until Q&A.
Okay. So would we, Ken?
Would we?
I want to go so far beyond this. Let's give up on dogs. Ken, you're loose. We're taking you to South America. We're throwing you in the bush. Are you going to survive?
No, not very long.
Exactly. So I really don't understand what this is, what you're getting at, because monkeys do just fine in the bush. We don't. We have evolved to the point where we are, where we had to learn how to build fires. We had to learn how to build clothes. We had to learn how to build tools. We evolved to the point where we can no longer actually just go live in a bush. And that's the other thing. I always hear creationists talk that man is this refined species. We don't look like a monkey. What do you think would happen, Kent, if your wife decided to stop shaving her armpits, her legs, and you stop shaving and let your hair grow? We are not the way we look. We are apes. And if we left our hair alone, and if we didn't cut it, just like apes don't cut their hair, it's not that hard to see us as an ape. The only thing that makes it hard is because, we get dressed up, we cut our hair, we shave, we do these things, but man is not as evolved. Actually, if you want to go into the word evolution, we've pretty much got ourselves to the point where we are a useless animal. If we weren't living the way we live, we would not do well in nature at all anymore. We would do terribly.
Well, are there people in the bush who do just fine and can survive in the bush?
Yeah, they don't have very good lives, though, do they?
But there are humans who, I don't think a wolf has a very good life either. He's got to chase food all day long.
But that's not me and you. That is not me and you. I'm telling you, Kent, if I go down to Florida and drink water, I get sick off of it. That's how weak we've made ourselves. These bush people are completely different. I think you'll agree. They got stronger immune systems. They're continually exposed to things that we're not exposed to. And don't go to Mexico and drink the water, but the people in Mexico can drink it just fine. When I say that when we look at ourselves, I'm talking about, first world countries. People like me and you that have become so delicate when it comes to temperature. We've become delicate when it comes to food. Man back in the day used to eat raw food.
Well, there are people who can live in the bush. You're right. We've become very soft, and we would still be interfertile with those people in the bush. We would still be the same kind. It's called mankind.
Right.
We are not interfertile with apes of any kind. Stalin tried that to breed. What?
How do we know that?
Stalin tried to breed super warriors by getting
No,
humans and
that's not true. That's very hearsay. We don't know what really happened there. And yeah, I'd be careful saying that it can't be done, because genetically we're very close to the bonobo. We have lots of apes that are very close, and genetic science says that there are some that we could possibly take, but that's not even somewhere that I want to go. That's a very risque topic, and I don't think we want to go down that road. But believe me, I would not be surprised if on paper they figure out that we could breed with. We're very close to some of the ape species, Kent. We're very close.
First of all, I will go on record as saying it is not possible for the apes and the humans to interbreed. Secondly, there are differences between apes and humans. We have more than just a body. We have a consciousness of life way beyond what the apes have. We have a consciousness of an
so do
afterlife.
elephants. So do elephants. They go back and visit their dead.
Well, you wanted to have a moment of silence for Bill Ludlow, who I debated.
Absolutely.
Why?
Out of respect. It gave me time to reflect.
If he's dead, he's gone. What difference? He's nothing but rotting meat now.
No, absolutely not. Bill's left behind a great legacy. Bill has done a lot of great things for science. Bill was a very passionate man about teaching children about the natural world around us and what's going on. Bill was a great man. I was not praying to a god, Kent. I was giving him, like I said when I came on, I said, it's funny, what popped into my head was the debate between you and Bill Ludlow. It wasn't a religious moment for me. It was a moment where I could reflect on what Bill has done. And that's why I wanted that. That's why I wanted a moment of silence for Bill, just to be able to reflect on his life. And I think he had a very good life, very prosperous life, and I think he did a lot of great things.
Well, he may have. He also did an enormous amount of damage by teaching children that you're just an animal and evolution is true. He taught a lot of lies.
How's that damaging? How does that damage anything?
It's not true. You're not just an animal.
You can't just say that. And yes, we are animals. In every sense of the word animal, we are an animal. You start checking off the boxes for animal, we're every single one of them. We have every single body system. We have every bone. We have, what point do we not become animals? Like I said, you don't shave your legs as a woman, don't shave your armpits. We would very much start looking like animals, that we would start to look like our ape cousins. We really would.
I haven't shaved my legs ever.
Well, hopefully your wife has. Unless you live in Canada. That's what we do up here to stay warm.
They don't look too bad.
All right. With that,
much different than apes.
That's
anyway.
I honestly, James, I feel like I only touched 1% of the things that I got papers everywhere on things that I wanted to go over with Kent. So I'm really hoping that he'll indulge in moving this forward, if that's what your audience.
Let's do another one. But why don't you come down to Lennox? It's 70 degrees down here.
You know we are, Kent. I already told my wife that I'd bring her down to meet you, and we'd tour around your little compound there.
It's not a compound, and it's not little. It's 140 acres, and it's a science center. Go ahead.
Kent. We're in Canada. Our provinces make Texas look like we don't talk big when we're talking states. Ontario's twice the size of Texas, so you're a little 150.
About 10% of the people.
But I'd love to talk to you more, Kent.
Sure.
Yeah, we will be coming down to see you. And okay. So we can get on with the question and answer period here and see what they got for us.
Excellent. Very excited to read these questions. So we appreciate all of your questions, folks. Starting off with the super chats, we appreciate it. Frank's92. Thanks for your super chat. He said, "Rest in peace, Bill Ludlow." Well, we agree with you there. And for those of you who haven't heard, I saw some people in the live chat. Sorry, I usually feel like social media is not a good way to find out. Ideally it can be somebody you know and in person. But if you haven't heard, Bill Ludlow has passed away. So we are, hope his family knows that our hearts go out to them. That's really hard. And as well as his friends, we hope they know that our hearts go out to them. So Tez, this looks like a new gentleman or lady. Tez Stickel, thanks for your super chat. They said, "Kent, can you demonstrate to us that you understand what evolutionists mean when they say we, quote, share a common ancestor with other primates?"
Sure, I can demonstrate very clearly. That shows that they have enormous faith way beyond the scientific observation. The scientific observation, which is what science is supposed to be, observable, testable, demonstrable, is that apes produce apes, chimpanzees produce chimpanzees, monkeys produce monkeys, orangutans produce orangutans. They don't mate with each other. They certainly don't mate with humans. We are a different kind. It's actually called mankind. We are very different. We're not part of the ape family. Though I taught school 15 years, I had a few students that made me wonder a few times. But no, they're not interfertile. We are not the same number of chromosomes, and the length of the chromosomes is different. There are millions of differences between humans and all of the apes. You want to look for similarities, I suppose you can. If you want to be related to them, you can. You can pretend that you are. But science deals with things we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. All the observation says humans produce more humans and apes produce more apes. They don't crossbreed. Monkeys, I used to raise squirrel monkeys. They don't produce anything but squirrel monkeys. That's it. End of story. So if you wish to believe that long ago and far away we diverged from a common ancestor, you're welcome to believe that, but that's part of a religion that is not part of science at all. I understand real well what they think they know, okay?
Gotcha.
James, give me 2 seconds there, and if you take what Kent's saying about just look into our fuse genes, that's all you got to do, and it's pretty much the nail in the coffin when you've got telomeres in the center and centromeres on the end. We know exactly what's going on. Don't take my word for it. Look it up, Google it, and you'll see. Shows our ancestry from ape, and it's really is the last nail in the coffin for it.
Gotcha. Thanks for your responses. I hate cutting you off just to be sure we don't go down a rabbit hole. We got a lot of questions, so we'll keep them short and pithy. Gosh, Steven Steen, you're sick. He's our friendly, benevolent troll. If you haven't met Steven, he says Mark thinks he's an expert animal tamer, but there's no way to tame the stunning stallion and majestic beast that is James. Well, that's very sweet. Thank you. Mothra J Disco, thanks for your super chat. They said, Kent, will you debate Robert Beatty on structuring because you've been avoiding it for years now, or are you... Oh, I think it's... Oh, they had a emoticon of a chicken. And then they said, rest in peace, Bill... They said, rest in power, Bill Ludlow. I don't know if there's a... But anyway, so... Rest in peace, Bill Ludlow and Kent. I don't know who Robert Beatty is, but I guess that it's a person that wants a piece of you.
Robert Beatty is a former IRS agent that they called out just to hassle me. He had three followers until he started picking on Kent Hovind. He jumped up to 80 followers. He is a legend in his own mind. I know I won't debate him on structuring. This is unrelated to anything about creation evolution. I did not break the structuring law. There's the whole website, KentHovinIsInnocent.com. Video number 3 goes for an hour and a half from a paralegal on that topic. I did not break any structuring laws, but they did give me 10 years in prison for it, and we're still going to fight that until I die. We're going to win. No, I wouldn't give Robert Beatty the time of day. He's not interested in truth at all. Robert, go away.
Gosh, yeah, okay. All right, thank you very much. Roy Lindsay, thanks for your super chat. He says, every Kent debate turns into the other debater teaching Kent basic science. I believe Kent has no interest in truth and is intentionally dishonest. Oh, snap. Kent, you have a chance to respond to that.
Well, what basic science, I think I understand basic science really well. What is there to observe? Science deals with observations. Okay. Would your friend whoever did this question, would they like to have a debate with me? Call 855-BIG-DINO, extension 2, that's Rhonda, the secretary, and schedule it. I'll be glad to I'll debate anybody on the topic of creation evolution. It's not science. It's a poison mixed in with our science books, but it's not science. Nothing scientific about it. Nobody's ever seen any animal produce a different kind of animal. They imagine that it happened long ago and far away, but what do you mean teaching me basic science? What would he like to teach me? Tell him, go ahead, schedule a debate. We'll take him on next. James, get his number. You call him. You host most of the debates here, so have another one tomorrow.
If I could just touch on that, what I would like to do, Ken, is I'd like you to learn the word of what science even means, because Darwin's Theory of evolution has been considered one of the most enlightening things that man has figured out. I forget the exact words that they used, but his realization of what we got going on here with the divergence of animals is considered one of the biggest scientific discoveries of all time. So if that's not science, I don't know what is.
I'm sure you don't know what is, because that is not science.
Well,
Darwin never
I'm
saw
just telling
any
you
animal.
what he's considered. His
Okay.
insight into the evolution of man and animals was considered one
Right.
of the
I would consider
biggest.
Darwin a moron. He
No,
thought
no.
all animals had a common ancestor. That is simply not true. I would say probably all the dogs have a common ancestor, a dog or wolf-like animal. That is not proof that dogs and mosquitoes are related. Yes, I
Yeah,
do
they
understand.
are. That's part two.
Well, you can
One
believe
second.
that if you want. But the word science comes from the Greek word, Latin word, seer, which means to know. What do we know? We know
Lots.
dogs produce dogs. We do not know that dogs and mosquitoes are related.
We
Gotcha. One
absolutely
second.
do.
Forgive
It's
me.
called
You
genetics.
may believe that if you want.
Just to kind of keep
Genetics.
us moving through. So
Absolutely,
sorry about that.
James.
So
Keep them rolling.
we have
Absolutely. That. Okay.
We've got Mothra J Disco. Looks like we've got Roy Lindsay. You heard it. Kent has offered a debate. He a challenge to debate Mothra J Disco. I have a feeling you might get a challenge as well. Mothra J Disco. He's coming at you, Kent. He says, Kent, you don't understand evolution. Be honest.
I completely understand what they teach. I don't believe it. Evolution is the dumbest and most dangerous religion ever invented in the history of humanity. Nobody's ever seen any animal produce a different kind of animal. All we've ever seen are cows produce cows, dogs produce dogs. There are no exceptions. No farmer in the history of the world or clear across anywhere on the world will tell you they've ever seen anything different. Now, if you wish to imagine SpongeBob style that dogs and bananas and wolves are related, you're welcome to imagine all you want, but that's not science. Science deals with things we can observe, study, and test and demonstrate. All observations show us, sure, you can get a lot of varieties like Great Dane and Chihuahua, but they're still dog. And there's a limit. You're never going to get a dog as small as a flea or a dog as big as Texas. There are limits. There are limits to the sense of smell. There are limits to the speed. There are limits to the bone structure. But there are animals as small as a flea, like a flea. So it is possible, and there are animals as big as an elephant. I completely understand what evolution teaches. I don't believe it for 1 second. I think it's the dumbest and most dangerous religion in the world.
Gotcha.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Fifth Element, thanks for your super chat. They said, Kent, explain why Planck time is important. And hopefully I'm spelling or pronouncing it right. I think it's after Planck, maybe not. I think
Planck. That's right.
Yeah,
Planck time.
And they say
Depends where you are, but it's Planck. Yep, you're okay with that.
And they say, and please do so in detail without one of your typical. Oh, they're coming at you, Kent. They said without one of your typical ridiculous comments. So Kent, you can give a response to that.
Are they asking for why we need billions of years? I think we could show that there's lots of limits to say the universe cannot be billions of years old. We certainly can show that there's no evidence of any animal, of any matter creating itself out of nothing. So where'd all this matter come from? There's a whole lot of matter in the universe. I think the idea that that was all squeezed in a dot is extremely stupid, but if you wish to believe that, that's fine. But I would resent paying for that to be taught in science as a science class. That's part of a religion class. Long ago and far away, boys and girls. It's fairy tale stuff. So I guess have them refine the question. Are they asking, how would I explain billions of years? It doesn't exist. Doesn't exist.
So anyways, Planck time, Planck frequency, Planck anything is the point in which the mathematics start to break down. We cannot go any further than that with math, and it is just the point where the mathematics start to break down and we start to get numbers that don't make sense, and that is where we're fitting God in. So Kent, your proper answer would have been that is where I can fit God in, is in this this moment.
No, that is where you are fitting evolution in.
Not at all.
Okay.
Wait, 1 sec. So sorry, just before we go on another Rage
Part
Pro.
2.
Rage Pro, that's right. If you guys want to come back, we'd be happy to have you both. You guys have both been really pleasant. So Rage Pro, thanks for your super chat. He's coming at you, Kent. He says, does your worldview recognize bears are related to dogs?
Does my worldview recognize bears? No, bears are, it depends what you mean by related. Do they both have hair? Well, yeah. Do they both have, two eyes? Sure. But there's obviously bears and dogs are not interfertile. I think anybody who studies animals will tell you bears are a different variety than dogs, or different. So no, I don't think bears and dogs are related. I think all animals and all plants were created by the same creator. Is the Chevy van and the Chevy pickup truck related? They're both made by Chevy. How do you define the word related? What do you mean related? No, bears always produce bears without exception. Dogs always produce dogs without exception. We cannot prove that bears and dogs have a common ancestor. He's welcome to believe that if he'd like, but that would be a religious belief, not scientifically observable.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. Next, Sigifredo Sarabia is in the house. Good to see you. They had a super chat. Thanks for that. They said, I can never tell if Sigifredo is trolling me or not. Sometimes it's hard to understand. He says, how did chicken evolve to be so delicious, and what features aided this predator in survival? What about a fainting goat or magic carp? I think he's being for real. It's a little mix of trolling, but I think he means like fainting goat. Like, why would that be adaptive? Like, why would that be a successful strategy for
It's
passing?
a genetic recession. It's not something that is successful. It's a problem. It's just like with human beings when we have epilepsy. It's a problem. It's a recessive gene, and unfortunately, because we did not have a creator, nature took over. We have a very imperfect replication system that sometimes makes mistakes. And exactly that, you get fainting goats, you get problems, you get people with epilepsy, you get people with these different problems that are, because things did not replicate properly. As far as why does the chicken taste so good, I have no idea, but they do taste good, I'll give them that. But I myself would have went with beef.
Gotcha. Really quick, we've got a few more. Thanks so much, Subtracted, for your super chat. They said, Kent, why do humans and chimps share the FOXP2 gene?
I would say they have the same designer. Why do Chevy Fords and Chevy vans and Chevy trucks have the same lug nuts fit on both of them? Aha, proof they evolved from a skateboard. Gotcha. No, the same designer make them. I think God used the same design basic pattern. Number one, we have the basic proteins in all the different animals, 20 different amino acids in the proteins as a general rule, and so that we could eat each other. We can eat the cow can eat the green grass and make milk, and I can churn it and make the yellow butter and get the blonde hair. So the fact that we have the similar gene structure or similarities would not be proof of common ancestor, but proof of common designer. However, let me point this one point out. I'm not demanding that everybody pay for my thinking about the designer to be taught in the schools. You guys are demanding that we all pay for your religion to be taught in the schools with exclusivity. We're not allowed to teach the kids, might be a creator, you can't do that, but it's okay to teach them to evolve. It's a religion. I think it's absolutely evil that they're doing that.
I'm always really quick, James. I'll tell you one thing. I'm 51 years old, and as a child, I said the Lord's Prayer every morning in school. We spent far, far more time reciting the Lord's Prayer in the morning than we ever spent on evolution. I think it was probably about 3 or 4 days. So I'm not sure where all this money's going, or tax money or this or that. But yeah, I spent more time praying in the morning, the Lord's Prayer.
Gotcha. Thanks for your both that question as well as your guys' responses. Raphael Block, thanks for your super chat. He said, Kent, would you please steelman plant and animal definitions and then list the features that differentiate humans from animals under that, you could say, taxonomy of kind of the secular or evolution definitions of plant and animal?
Okay, I think everybody that teaches or learns studies biology would agree there is a plant kingdom and there is an animal kingdom, and they're different. Now, there's a few screwball ones at the microscopic level that get pretty hard to classify, but as a general rule, they can be classified in the plant kingdom or animal kingdom. I use the illustration of our tool bench downstairs, our tool in the shop here. We can classify tools. Is it a screwdriver or a hammer or a wire cutter? Well, most of them are easy to classify. There's a few that are hard to classify, like where are we going to put this? Is this considered a hammer? Because it's, the fencing pliers. It's got a hammer on it. I don't know. But I think 99.99% of all the living organisms can be easily classified into plant or animal kingdom. Now, plants, best definition I've ever heard, plants have a body, they grow, they reproduce, they replicate, but animals have something different than plants. Animals have a consciousness of life that, as far as we know, plants do not have. a consciousness. They're not only alive, they know they're alive. Something's different between the animal and plant kingdom. Then there's man, which is not only has a body, like plants do and animals do. We have a consciousness of life, and we have a consciousness of an afterlife. We have a consciousness of God that no other creature seems to have. There's something different. Call it body, soul, and spirit, if you'd like. Plants only have a body. Animals have a body and a soul, spirit. Man has a body, soul, and spirit. We have certainly something different between man and the animals. Now, if you wish to believe there's no difference, you can believe whatever you want. But I think everybody with one eye and half a brain would tell you there's something different between man and animals. Here we are worried about Bill Ludlow dying. Do you think any of the animals ever go around worried about somebody that died? You talk about the elephants going back to the grave. Are there any other animals besides the elephant going back to the grave?
Dolphins too, mourn their death.
Oh, dolphins. Okay.
Yeah. And not only that, the only difference between man and animals, because man is obviously an animal, is we have one hell of an imagination.
So that's the only difference, is we have an imagination. You don't think elephants have an imagination?
There is no difference. We are an animal, but we have one heck of an imagination. We can make up stories, good stories, big stories.
Oh, Darwin made up a huge one, didn't he? Wow, what a story.
Gotcha. Thanks so much for those responses, as well as Fifth Element. Thanks for your super chat. They said, what does Planck time have to do with millions of years? What is Planck time, Kent? And can you answer without your ridiculous comments? Are you like them apples? Okay, go ahead, Ken.
Well, I'm sure anybody who believes they came from a rock thinks my comments are ridiculous. Okay, you can believe what you want. Well, as he said tonight, as Mark said, this is where the numbers begin to break down. The math breaks down. This is where you enter into fairy tale imagination land. When reality breaks down, you're in fairy tale land, okay? And this evolution with the millions of years and animals turning from non-living material to living material, it's all imagination land. It's not just the numbers breaking down, it's reality breaking down. It didn't happen. They can dream it happened, they can think it happened if they like, but that's not science. Science is limited to what we can observe, study, and test. Science cannot deal with many different things. Gotcha. There's a lot of different disciplines outside the field of science. So I think the answer Mark gave, that Planck time is where things break down, the mathematics breaks down. That sounds like a reasonable explanation, but it really, got to admit, this is where you're going into fairy tale, no longer science.
Gotcha. Next up, last one. Thanks for your super chat. So she goes by this. This is her own name.
I know what it's going to be.
Stupid Whore Energy.
Yeah.
Says, given that two proteins don't need to have the same amino acid sequence to have the same function, doesn't the similarity make more sense in light of common descent? So I think this is referring back to the question on why is it that humans and I think it was maybe apes share the FOX2 gene.
Is that question for me?
Yes.
Well, our English language has 26 letters. You can rearrange those letters and make an infinite number of words, apparently, okay? Certainly an infinite number of sentences. It would be limitless how many different sentences could be made. By just changing one or two letters, you can radically change the meaning of the sentence. George went and stole the money from the bank. It would be an example. I could say, John went and stole the money from the bank. Well, that's many, many similarities in the sentence sequence, but a vastly different meaning. Like the sentence, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog, contains every letter of the English alphabet. You can rearrange those 26 letters and make totally different words and different meanings, or make most of them, if you just simply drop those letters from that sentence on the table, 99.99999% of the time, it would make nothing, wouldn't make a sentence at all. So the amino acids, the 20 different amino acids found in proteins, you can be arranged different ways and make different proteins. I agree. What does that prove? Somebody's arranging them. There's a designer to make all the proteins. And we can eat the meat from the cow and develop and digest it into our system. But the cow ate the grass to get it into his meat. And the grass ate the dirt to turn it into grass. It's an amazing design, the cycle of nature that God designed. And I'm going to give God the glory for what he did. I think it's amazing. I love studying it. Taught biology for years. I love studying the biology, study of life. Life is amazing. Very different than non-life. And it's fun to study. come on down to our science center and we'll give you a tour and let you learn about real science. God made everything.
Kent, I can't imagine what that class was like where you taught biology. I can't even for a minute imagine what you taught.
Sure you can.
Because
I'm sure you
pretty
can.
much everything that you talk about when it comes to biology is I don't even know what you could have taught. I really don't. I would love to have another debate with you and hear some of this stuff because
Gotcha.
yeah.
Thank you
Don't
both.
know what to say.
We do have one question that just came in. So thanks, Mark, for your patience. That I think every single question was for Kent so far. Mark, one person just fired it in. Pansall Jones, thanks for your super chat. They said, Mark, which features did not develop by evolution?
What car didn't fly? I don't know what that means, James. You gotta Kent, can you help me out on that? Because everything is through evolution. I'm not sure what he's asking.
Mark, I can definitely help you out.
Help me on this one.
Nothing is through evolution. Everything was designed. It was designed to make variations available. Some people are taller or shorter, but there's variations within the created kind. There are people 7 feet tall. There is nobody 400 feet tall. There are people 40 inches tall, but there's nobody 1 inch tall. God designed every feature and gave it limits, gave it variations that can happen. And the variations are fun to explore. That's biology, the study of life. Love it.
All the 140 foot tall people got hit by the moon.
Next up, we want to say thanks so much. We've already gone over Kent's time once again. I'm so sorry about that. Kent usually asks for like maybe an hour, a little over an hour, and we've honestly, I'm so sorry, Kent, that we have gone over that. But want to say thank you to our speakers. We appreciate them. It's been a pleasure to have both of them. I think this has been, yeah, it was, I really, honestly, I think that the audience loved it as well. We have had a huge audience tonight that seems to be very lively. So we really, I know that I totally enjoyed it. So thank you guys so much for being here. We appreciate you spending your time. Hey everybody, today we are debating whether or not today's living diversity has come from Noah's flood alone, or I should say Noah's Ark alone, and we are starting right now. Ladies and gentlemen, thrilled to have you here. This is going to be an epic one. I really believe that. The reason is we have 2 seasoned veterans, 2 gentlemen who have been in the debate world, listening and debating, and they are ready to roll tonight. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Want to let you know just a few things up front. We are very excited. First, if this is your first time here and you love debates, well, you're in the right place. Feel free to hit that subscribe button and that little bell notification if you want notifications of when we have future debates, including you'll see on the bottom right of your screen in that corner, Pine Creek is returning. He will be here tomorrow with Jonathan McClatchy and with our dear friend John. So that's going to be a triple threat debate. Christian versus atheist versus Orthodox Jew. That is going to be a lot of fun. So really pumped. I think it's been about a year since we've had Doug from Pine Creek. Really pleasant guy. He's always been I've really enjoyed him, and I enjoy the others as well. But it's hard for me to basically say how much I enjoy these 2 gentlemen, and the reason is NephilimFree and Mark have been so helpful to this channel. And I want to let you know, both of their links are in the description. So if you're listening to their stuff and you're listening to them during this conversation, you're like, I like that. There is plenty more where that came from. And I just want to say, I can't thank them enough because this channel, it really is the debaters that are the lifeblood. So, I mean, I could not debate nearly as much as it would just be terrible me debating myself every night. You wouldn't want that, folks. So NephilimFree was willing to come on back in the day when we had 2 subscribers, and one of them was me and the other one was me with a fake account. So it was, we've always just been thankful. So we really appreciate these guys. They've always supported us. So with that, very excited. I'm just going to let the conversation go. I suppose since NephilimFree, you're in the affirmative tonight. We'll kind of let you get the conversation rolling, and then we can just go right into open conversation from that. So once you feel like you've kind of laid out your kind of opening statement, loosely speaking, Mark, you can just go right from there in terms of engaging in discussion. So thanks for being here, guys.
Sounds good, James.
Okay, sounds fun. Mark, it's nice to meet you. Well, I've never met you before. It's always nice to meet new people, especially people who are intelligent, love to dig their brains into stuff and their minds as well as their brain.
Thank you, Nephilim.
So well, I'll just start off by saying, throw out a couple of bones here. There are 156 seed plant families common to South America and Africa, yet there are 174 seed plant families common between South America and Asia. This is a problem for the uniformitarianist idea that South America and Africa were joined millions of years ago. Not that they were joined, but they were joined millions of years ago. Because we should expect more seed plant families common to South America and Africa than South America and Asia. It can be explained by biogeographical divergence, however, distribution by rafting from the flood. Monkeys exist in South America, Africa, India, and Japan. The problem here for the evolutionist is that South America and Africa are said to have split apart millions of years before monkeys evolved. So how did monkeys get where they are? Well, this can be explained by rafting after the flood, land bridges and rafting. But it argues against the evolution idea. So how did monkeys, the evolutionist would have to believe, unless they believe what the creationist believes, that monkeys evolved more than once. Now that's not plausible, right? Because they're too much the same. So how did that happen? Well, I'll just point out that the biodiversity that we have in this world today is not a problem at all for the creationist. It's a problem for the evolutionist. There are many reasons why, but the reason it's a problem for the evolutionist is because there is no mechanism known for the change, the anatomical change that evolution requires. Gregor Mendel experimented with plants a million bajillion ways, never got any anatomical change to occur. Lots of morphological change, no anatomical change. A million studies in genetic mutation have been conducted since 1930s. You could stack the papers several stories tall if you printed them all on a computer printer. Not one evidence of that mutation is a mechanism for anatomical change. So evolutionists believe in vertical evolution. Creationists believe in horizontal evolution, if you want to call it that, horizontal change. We don't have any mechanism or evidence for the vertical stuff. That's the evolutionists' kind of change. They believe in vertical evolution, not horizontal change. Change does not equal evolution. Anatomical change is required for evolution. If organisms survive and they change in morphology in a million ways, color, size, shape, even patterns, even shape, you'll never get a new type of living, fundamentally new type of creature. You got to have the vertical type of evolutionary change. That's anatomical change. The fossil record doesn't support it. We don't have a mechanism in biology. All we have is horizontal change. Creatures produce varieties. Changes to allele frequency do occur, right, Mark? But we don't know a mechanism or have evidence of anatomical change in any increment. Now, if evolution were true, Mark, there would be millions of examples of creatures on this planet right now walking around, crawling around, that show that new anatomical structures are evolving in their body plans. We don't have one. We don't have any in the fossil record either, which is why the vast majority of eminent scientists admit the fossil record shows stasis, not clear evidence of anatomical change. So I would just say and then of course we can discuss the geological evidences for the flood, which is absolutely overwhelming. But if you want to believe that the biodiversity of this world was created by some kind of evolutionary mechanism, I'd say, what's that mechanism? Because we haven't found one yet. So maybe Mark, I'll pass it over to you. I'll ask you if you can explain to us why we should believe all this structural design change in the body plans of living things without any evidence for it or a known mechanism for it.
Well, nephew, you kind of just nailed yourself to the wall on your opening statement. If you're going to tell me that two sets of monkeys cannot diverge from a single set of monkeys that they came over on the raft, so when Noah's Ark crashed its way onto the Rocky Mountain, where did the two monkeys go that came off of the Ark? Did they stay in Asia? Did they stay in Mesopotamia? Did they head off to South America? Like, I'm really confused. Did they breed first in in Mesopotamia, and then worked their way over to South America, and then diverged into the small little monkeys that we see in South America compared to the old world monkeys and apes that we see in Africa. I'm just going to pass that right back to you, because I really think you've nailed yourself to the wall on your opening statement. I don't know how we could have um, a better example of evolution than comparing the monkeys that are in South America compared to the ones that are in Asia and Africa. And how did we get this divergence if there's no such thing as evolution? Where'd they come from? How come we have little 1 pound monkeys in South America and we have 300-pound apes in Africa? Are you telling me that they came from a set of proto monkeys that came off the ark, 2 of them? Now, don't forget, Nephi, if you're going to tell me that a bunch of monkeys and apes came off the ark, you're going to have to fit several billion species of animals on that ark. You better keep it down to just a couple species.
Okay, well, Marky, I don't see a problem. I don't know what you're talking about, really. Be honest with you. What's the where's the anatomical change in that in varieties of monkeys? Where do
Okay,
we have
well,
the where was the physiological evidence and the fossil evidence of the coming into being of a monkey, and how does one species of monkey compared to another monkey on the living extant species in this world show any kind of anatomical changes occurred that created monkeys? Where's that at?
why would I even take the time to explain that to you, Nephi? You've got to explain to me right now how 2 monkeys got off of the ark. And if you want to, I will leave it at that. How many monkeys got off the ark? How many apes? How many primates?
There would have been 7 of each kind, but for me to
No,
believe
not
that there
7 of
were
each
there,
kind.
yes,
Monkeys aren't
according to the
clean.
Bible, according to the
Monkeys
Bible.
aren't clean animals. They
Okay.
they don't
Well,
yeah, they don't chew the cud and have a split hoof. They're not a clean animal.
okay,
There would
so
be 2 of them.
well, no, I don't think so. But I don't see we don't know the mechanism or the evidence that monkeys came into being. That's the problem. Monkeys coming off the ark, remaining monkeys, is not a problem for creation. You understand, Marky?
Nephi,
All
you
right.
really are. You're bouncing around here. You got to go back to the ark. We just opened the door. Noah opened the door. What
Yeah.
just walked out for primates?
Well,
Besides
it would.
Noah and his family, what just stepped out of the ark as a primate that's going to
Oh, I see.
hop on a raft and cruise the world?
Okay, so you're under this belief, I think, that God could have only made one type of ape, and I just don't happen to believe that. I don't see, I don't happen to believe that God made just one type of ape any more than I believe God made one kind of cat or one kind of spider.
But
So
Nephi, I'm not
God's
going to let
diversity.
you
Hold on,
off
hold
of
on.
this.
Now let me finish.
I
God
won't let you
God
off of this
created
until you tell me how
God
many
created
apes got off
diversity.
the ark.
God created diverse life forms, and we just
Okay.
don't have evidence that they came into being by any evolutionary process. All we have is stasis in the fossil record. We have stasis in the body plans of every living thing on the planet shows stasis, every one. So I mean,
You
it's
can
not
you can
it's not
you
a
can come
problem
up
for
with
me.
all the words you want.
The-
I
the-
want to know how many primates came off the ark. Was it 2? Are you going to let me put 1.8 billion species on your ark? Or are you going to agree with me that there
oh,
was only 2 primates on that ark, a set of little proto monkeys and apes, I guess, and then we diverged into all of the animals we have? That's how you started your comment, that through rafting, we have the monkeys we have in South America, we have the monkeys we have in Asia, we have the monkeys we have in Africa. And by the way, you've also got to throw the lemurs from Madagascar into that, the lesser primates. So
okay. So
you just need to tell me, now, I'll give you all the time you want. How many monkeys walked down that that platform into the mud hole that we called Earth after the flood?
well, Mark, the answer is very simple, and I think I've already addressed it. I be honest with you, you can't tell me exactly how many species of ape existed in the past any more than I can tell you how many kinds of ape God created and were on the ark. See,
Tens of
that's
thousands.
a right. So you don't know an exact number, and neither do I. So the question is moot. The question, what matters, is not how many kinds of ape did God make, but what's the evidence that apes were not always apes, and the evidence is clearly for the creationist. We have only evidence that apes are apes, primates are primates. We have no evidence of the coming into being of any primate. Now, if you think you have that, get on the phone with your favorite paleontologist and provide it. I'll be right here. Where is it?
I'm not sure what you're talking about, Nephi. I know of 100 different lemurs. I have 6 different lemurs on my property right now.
Lemurs are a living
I have
fossil.
4 different monkeys on my property.
Monkeys are
And
living
apes,
fossils.
I have my entire family. Fossils, no, I don't. I live close to a beach, so I haven't gone digging for fossils yet. But yeah, we have a huge fossil record of animals turning into
So,
primates. But I know where you're going here.
okay, where is that? Can you cite
Nephi,
that, please?
Nephi, please don't talk over me. We agreed we'd just talk one at a time. I've given you lots of time to talk. I need you to go back to the ark and tell me how many primates got off the ark, not including Noah and his 3 sons and his wife. That's all
Okay.
I want to know.
Okay, Mark, I've addressed that question. I can't tell you that any more than you can tell me how many ape species existed in the past. But now you said you just told us that you have all this evidence that that apes came into being by transition. Can you cite that for us, please? Because I don't know of any scientist that shows that, and I've never seen it. I don't know of any evolutionist that's ever presented that. You might be the first in the world. Can you
No,
can you share us?
okay, I'll let you finish. Sorry.
Can you, yeah, can you, we're going to need for you to share that evidence with us that you said exists, and you alluded abundantly that apes came into being. Now you mentioned lemurs. Well, lemurs are a living fossil. We got fossils of them. They're still living. That's that's stasis. That's not evidence of transition, because there were once lemurs that lived in the past, and they're still living today. They don't show transition. Okay, they're still a lemur. Okay, same thing is true with apes. We have apes that live today, and we have apes that lived in the past, and they're living fossils or they're extinct, but we just don't have this fossil evidence that apes came into being from something non-ape, or that lemurs were the transitional form. How is a lemur a transitional form to apes when lemurs are living fossil themselves and just as old as apes in the fossil record? Mark, you don't have your story straight here. Can you
Of
help us
course
out?
I do, Nappy. Well, for one thing, you're not letting me, you're not giving me an answer about the ark. And everyone knows what I was getting at. We want to know, is there 1.8 billion species like we see today of terrestrial animals? Or are we going to pretend, along with Answers in Genesis and Kent Hovind, that there was only about 5,000 kinds on the ark? Okay, so I'll let you go on that. Clearly, that is something that you're not willing to answer for me. And you know what I'm getting at. If you're going to tell me that there was 1.8 billion species of animals on the ark, we know it's an impossible story. A fleet of arks couldn't hold 1.8 billion animals. I have about 60 of them on my property, and it takes me and 4 employees every day about 4 to 6 hours just to clean up after them. And even outdoors, the smell of urine and shit, if we don't clean it up, is just absolutely unbearable. So let's just pretend that you answered that with, I don't know, we'll go halfway and we'll go that there was 7 billion species on that ark. So we know that that's absolutely impossible. The fossil record, why do you think that one thing has to produce something else? Why do we have to go from a monkey to an ape to a lemur to a whatever? Why do we need to do that? We know that dogs came from wolves, so why can we not have a divergence? That is horizontal gene transfer right there. When we have a primate that made it off the continent of Africa, made its way out to the island of Madagascar, and has clearly diverged in its own way to eat the fruits and the vegetation that's in Madagascar, compared to what was on the plains and the bushes of Africa. What else would you call that except horizontal gene transfer? We still got everything, Nephi. It's not like we go from monkey to person to New World monkey to Old World monkey to squirrel monkeys to marmoset monkeys. They're all eking out a living in different environments. I'm not sure what you're calling this horizontal and vertical gene transfer.
Okay, so Mark, I see that you've fallen into a very big, deep evolutionist trap, and I don't understand. It's really difficult to understand how evolutionists get in there and why they can't get out. You have this bizarre belief that all of the quote unquote species that exist had to have been on the ark, but yet you'll be happy to admit that man has made 250 different breeds of dogs in the last 250 years, or maybe 350 years.
Can I step in
So,
for a sec, Nephi, and
so,
then I'll let you
so
talk again? Just let me just one little quick comment. Let's not, let's
yeah,
keep
okay.
this
One little
galloping
quick
down, and
comment.
that I think that'll keep the audience. We agreed to have a very polite exchange here. So the reason that us, and I know you call us evolutionists, but I call us realists, the reason that the realists believe that this is impossible is because we just do not believe in speciation. We do not believe in evolution that you're talking about. We know that dogs have taken 10,000 years through very selective breeding to get what we have today. That's why we will not allow you in 4,000 years to go from an ape to a marmoset monkey. We just won't allow it. You're talking about a 9-ounce monkey.
Assume that evolution is what produced the variety, and that there had to have been that all apes are related. That's your problem. Again, I've already stated that I don't know how many kinds of God made, and you can't show me how many types of ape that existed in the past either, any more than I can tell you how many kinds of ape may have been on the ark. Okay, so that's your problem, and then you move from that to varieties. I've pointed out that just like we can get 250 breeds of dog by selective breeding in 250 years, and they're
10,000.
all 100% dog. In fact, they're
10,000, Neffy. 10,000 years ago.
anatomically, well, you're welcome to believe that they're anatomically identical to a wolf. There is no anatomical difference, you understand, between a wolf and a chihuahua, right? There is
Are you
none.
kidding me?
There's morphological difference, Mark. Do you understand the difference between morphology and anatomy? There's
Okay,
no,
well, let's.
there's no,
Okay.
hold on now. You said you'd give me time to talk. Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
There is no difference anatomically between a wolf and a collie. There is morphological difference. There's no anatomical difference. Okay. Evolution claims anatomical difference takes
I'm going to
place.
nail you to the
Okay.
wall, Neffy, so keep talking.
The ape came into existence. You said there's plenty of paleontology, anthropological evidence of apes coming into existence. We haven't heard that yet. So the varieties of living things that exist on this world, again, I'll tell you, they show stasis. We don't have the evidence that they transitioned one into another, that they came into being. So variety is not a problem for creationists. This will be like the third time I've told you, Mark. Variety is not a problem for creationists. Horizontal change is a fact. But vertical change, we don't know about that. That's what you guys say you believe. That's what you guys are claiming is science. Now, if that's science, what's the evidence for it? Help us out. Make us believers.
Oh, I'm going to make you a believer, Neffy. Tell me the difference between me or you and an ape. If you can do it with a dog, tell me the difference right now. You got 5 minutes.
There is
I'll
no
sit back and
anatomical,
listen.
Mark, there's no anatomical difference between any two human beings on this planet.
How about
Not
an
one
ape?
bit.
How about an ape and a human?
Yes, there is anatomical difference.
Tell me
Okay.
about them.
Where's the fossil evidence that shows, or the living examples that show that the anatomical difference between humans and apes came into being by transitional forms?
No, you can't
There,
ask me
there
for a
just isn't
fossil.
any.
Anatomical
You
differences,
don't
you
have
have
that.
to tell me right now what they are. These are, we don't have to go searching for fossils. Tell
Okay.
me the difference between you, me, and an ape, a silverback ape.
Well, chimpanzees, I can say, they have a different number of bones.
Apes.
Different.
We are apes.
Well,
We are apes. We're not chimpanzees.
we're
We are
not apes.
apes.
We're not
Yes,
apes.
we are.
No,
Unless you can right now come up with a difference, like you were saying, you did it with the dogs. And next, I'm going to ask you to tell me the
Okay.
difference between a penguin and a hummingbird. But I'm going to sit back and let you tell me the difference right now, anatomically, between me and an ape. Not you.
Okay.
I'll take the ape here. You were created by God. I am
Sure.
an ape.
Then,
Tell me the difference.
apes have a bacula. Humans don't.
What?
Apes have different number of skull bones than humans. Apes have a different number. Not all apes. Some apes have a different number of ribs than human beings. Okay.
What the hell does that have to do with it? Horses have all different counts of ribs, Neffy.
But the difference is we don't show them in the fossil record. We don't see the transitions living. See, all we have, Mark, is evidence that apes have been apes and humans have been humans. We don't have the transition, and the same is true throughout all the living types of creatures in this world. Now, you said you had this anatomical evidence, this fossil evidence that apes came into being. Where is that? I mean,
I don't need it.
Well, then you don't have evidence for your belief system.
What you're doing is every time I nail you to the wall, and I can hear you getting nervous here because this is what I'm very good at. All I am is a person of common sense. That's all I am. I don't claim to be very educated in this stuff. That's why I told you that I didn't want to debate you on chemistry. I have no ability for chemistry. I know what water's made of. So you would beat me on that. I have it. My magic is common sense. So every time you bring up don't care which species you bring, me and an ape, because I
Two things
am
are going to
an
happen
ape.
here.
So you are never going to be able to do this,
Two
Nephi.
things are going to happen here, Mark. You're not going to grandstand and own the mic for 5 minutes, and I get it for 2 every time we speak. That's not going to
I
happen.
think I've given
I'll
you
just,
lots of time.
I'll just leave the debate. Okay. If you want to really debate, then we can both meet with him. We can share the mic, but it's not going to be you on the mic for 4 minutes and me on it for 40 seconds.
I don't
Okay.
think I've done that.
If that's what you think a debate is, we'll have to find another way to do it. Okay. We'll use timing. Okay. But
Nephi, I'm watching
secondly,
the live. I'm watching the live
I
chat.
held
We'll
you.
see what they think.
I don't care what they think. Okay. I
Okay.
care all that's happening. What's happening is what I care about. Now, secondly, I've asked you, you've made the claims. The evolutionists always do this. They make these big claims. Oh, we got all the fossil evidence that we need. I haven't heard it yet. See, so you're running with your tail between your legs for your claims, Mark. You said there's paleontological evidence. The apes came into being from non-apes, and you pointed to a lemur. Lemurs are a living fossil, Mark. That's not going to help you. Now, I've got to do something to help my wife. I'm sorry. She's handicapped. I can't change that. Okay. Give me about 3 minutes and I'll be right back. I'm sorry about that.
Can I talk for your 3 minutes?
You can talk about whatever you want, but I'm going to ask you while you're talking, since I'm gone, to provide the paleontological evidence that apes came into being from non-apes while I'm gone. I'll be back in just a minute.
Thank you.
Well, 1 second. Just because, forgive me, Mark. I'll give you a chance to make your case, but I'm just kind of like, well, so it must be fair to assume that like Nephi's able to hear you, like, because otherwise it would be like, well, why he wouldn't be able to respond unless he's able to hear you for these 3 minutes while he's in the other room.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I'm a very fair player. I play things pretty straight. I'm not going to attack Nephi here on this because I really want him to tell me about why I'm not an ape. Clearly he brought up, and again, I'm not gonna say things when he's not here to defend himself. He has brought up that morphologically we've got a difference between, and I won't put words into his mouth like he did for me. I never said that I have fossil evidence for the transition between all the primates, all the chimpanzees, the monkeys, the lesser primates like the lemurs, that type of thing. That's not something I even claimed. I'm not a fossil guy. I don't go around digging in the ground. And to be honest with you, I don't even like looking at them. They look like rocks to me that are shaped like bones. You know, I know enough about them to. But again, I would just really like him to answer. And maybe I need to step my voice down a stage or two. Maybe he thinks I'm yelling at him. But I would really like him just to tell me. Again, you know, we're claiming that we were built by God. The strongest evidence for being built that there is a God is that man was made in their image. So we really just need to hear from Nephi why we are not.
That's what we're hoping for, and excited to also mention, tomorrow will be hosting. If you were at the beginning of the stream, you've already heard this. Forgive me. Pine Creek will be back tomorrow, the first time in about a year, I think. That will be a lot of fun. Jonathan McClatchy, who is, I think, a strong apologist, he will be here as well. And then our good friend, new friend, John, or Gashala John, who's also in the live chat right now, they will be here for a triple threat match. So that's going to be like impromptu atheist versus Christian versus Orthodox Jew. And wherever it goes, it goes. There's also a rumor. We don't know for sure, but it might be the case that Destiny is coming sometime in the next 2 weeks to modern day debate to debate whether or not Trump is racist. It's a possibility.
Okay, so I'm back. I'm going to have to leave and do something else for in just a few minutes. But Mark, while I was gone, did you provide this paleontological evidence that you said exists for apes coming into existence from non-apes? And the difference between those two.
Well, there's not finding out a difference. I obviously know what the difference is, or I wouldn't ask you to tell me the difference between an ape and a man. But we don't have to continue down that. I've clearly got that one. You know, that's my hand. I won that one. And then where we could go from there is Nephi, tell me the difference between a hummingbird and a let's say a penguin or an emu. Are they all a bird kind?
Okay.
What are they?
Yeah. So, you know, I don't happen to know, but maybe you could tell me Mark, here's the thing. It's a ridiculous question, because if I don't happen to know what the anatomical difference between those two species is, doesn't mean that it doesn't make a case for you. We need to believe that horizontal change turns into vertical change is a mechanism for it, and examples of it. There aren't any in the fossils. There aren't any in the living species that walk this planet right now. There's no structural designs arising in the body plans of not one creature on this earth. And
Okay,
if you can cite it, then we have a reason to believe in your religion as opposed to mine. Okay, but all we ever see, and all we have physical evidence for, is horizontal change. We don't have this vertical change. It exists in your imagination, I know, but we don't have a mechanism for it. And if it were true, if evolution were true, shouldn't there be an abundance of evidence for it if we're going to call it science?
What do you call football field reams of papers for evidence? We don't make this stuff up.
Where is it?
What do you mean?
What is this evidence again?
Reams and reams of
Can you
evidence.
cite the evidence itself?
What do you want me to do? Do you want me to head down to the library?
Well, like, I mean, telling me it exists, Mark, is not going to help you. Okay,
well,
you're telling me that mountains
of
evidence exist for something you can't cite, and that just doesn't go anywhere for me. That's telling stories.
Nephi, obviously I've gotten you on a couple ones here that is making you unhappy, so I'm going to back down here. I'm going to pull my claws back in, and I'm going to give you whatever you want to allow James to continue on with this. We need to give him at least another 15 minutes. That's not too much to ask. He set this up for us. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to back down a bit here. You're asking me to show you peer-reviewed papers of evidence towards evolution. We all know it exists. It's like claiming the sun doesn't exist, Nephi. It's out there. There's reams and reams and piles of ice. Oh, good Lord, he's gone again. Anyways, if you can hear me, Nephi, we have ice cores, we have mud cores from the bottom of the ocean. Just because they're not sitting on my table doesn't mean they don't exist.
Gotcha. And
3 degrees in Canada right now. I'm where am I? I'm on Lake Huron, so I would be right across from Sarnia. So what's on the other side of my lake here? I don't know. I don't go across ever. I'm near Windsor. We're about 3 degrees now. Raining last 2 days. Crappy weather.
You're a Canadian as well, like Shannon. Our internet is atypical. It's usually, frankly, a lot stronger. For some reason, our internet's been kind of bobbing up and down in terms of its connectivity. But I definitely, there are a lot of Canadians in the debate world or the atheism world or the Christian apologetics world. It's an interesting thing. And that's definitely interesting.
James, we honestly grow up here very free-minded, and I hope if there's any Canadians there in the chat that they will that they'll back me on this. We're not taught it. It's not on our radios. To be honest with you, I tune into all the religious channels as I start heading south, as I get into Virginia, West Virginia, the Carolinas, and I listen to it. It's not preached to us up here. We are left to have a very free mind to try to figure things out for ourselves. That's not to say that there isn't religion up here. It's just, it's not done in the same way. My parents moved to Philadelphia, and my dad had a business down there. It's just a different way of living. And up here, I don't want to say it's a better way. Like I say, I don't call myself an atheist because I didn't even grow up knowing what religion was, to be honest with you. It was kind of a weird thing to watch on TV on a Sunday morning. So in that sense, I think that's why, if anyone's wondering why there's so many Canadians, that take the scientific side like I do, it's kind of the reason. It's a different world. I know the other side is from the States and my mom is Canadian.
Yeah, that's really cool. Neph, are you
Mark, we're still looking for this.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm here. Still looking
were
for
you
this,
able to hear Mark while you were? I just want to know like how much.
No, I wasn't. I was away from my PC a moment.
Okay. Well, we will give you a chance to respond, Neph, and then
Well, in all fairness, James, how about I just tell him the two things that I said? Nephi, the one thing I can't do is I can't give you ice core samples, and I can't give you ocean floor samples either. I don't have them on my coffee table right now.
Okay.
And it's the
So,
same with the fossil evidence. So I'll pass it over to
okay.
you. Let's I will give you all the time you want. Let me know when you want to hear from me.
Okay. So, well, you could provide ice core samples. That wouldn't help you, but so you acknowledge that you can't provide the paleontological evidence, you say, of vertical change. Okay. Understood, because nobody ever has, that most eminent scientists in the world have all acknowledged in their own books that the fossil record shows stasis for everything, and that there's any clear evidence of transition in the fossil record. So that doesn't help you. Now, I want you to try to help you understand something. You made a very great mistake in your thinking about when we first started this discussion. You had this assumption, this false assumption, that all the varieties of living things that exist in this world today had to have somehow been on the ark. This is a common mistake that evolutionists make. They believe that there had to have been, for some reason, 8,000 different species of ape, and 18 different species of cat, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that's just not true. The diversity that we see in living things is produced by horizontal change, which is an observed mechanism. We see that. We don't know how many created kinds there were. We don't any more than how many types of ape lived in the past exactly. You can take a guess. So that's a mistake, something that evolutionists need to work on to come out of that mistake that you made. But I'll point this out too. In 1980, a collection of some of the biggest eggheads in the fields of evolutionary biology got together at a conference in Chicago at Chicago University. And Richard Lewontin, the famous science writer, was there. Okay, he's no friend to creation. He's an evolutionist. He was once a biologist himself, but then he turned into a science writer, changed careers. And he wrote that at the Chicago conference, he listened to it. And at the Chicago conference, he said, in so many words, he said that the scientists there universally agreed, with the exception of one or two little arguments, that nobody could provide the evidence of this vertical change, that microevolution turns into macroevolution. Even this was some of the top eggheads in the world in the evolutionary fields, and they agreed. Nobody was able to produce an explanation of how microevolution becomes macroevolution. So evolutionists, you guys play a funny game. You tell people out of one side of your mouth, oh, we've got mountains of evidence that microevolution becomes macroevolution and that fossils show transitional forms. But then when you're put on the spot by a creationist like myself and you're asked, what is that evidence? You go silent and you want to change the subject. And what's wrong with that picture, Mark?
What's wrong with that picture is you did it again, Nephi. We are not the ones that are claiming that all animals went down to 2 of each kind. You just brought it back up. I promised I took you off the wall. I allowed you to pass on that one. I took my hand, I folded my hand and said, Nephi, I'll let you off the hook. Then you just opened it up again. That's exactly it. We are not the ones that claim that 4,500 years ago we went down to 2. So you're telling me that I can't produce every fossil in the fossil record,
straw man.
You will not get. Nope. Give me a second, Nephi. Let's be polite.
That's a straw man.
Oh, Neff, let's just give him a chance to respond too, though.
Neff, it's not a straw man. You're asking me for the impossible. I only have a 1,400 square foot house. I can't keep the reams of evidence for fossilization and everything in my house, and I don't care to Google it. I know it exists. So I'm just passing it back to you again because you just re-brought it up. You need to tell us 4,500 years ago, your claim is that we had a flood, and from that flood, we saved 2 of every animal. Tonight, if you look at the title of our debate, it's supposed to be talking about whether or not we could see the diversity in life that we see today from the 2 animals that got off of that ark. That is all I've asked you for all night, and I've offered to back down because I don't want you to take off. I just really want you to tell me how many animals got off the ark. You just reopened it up. Even though I just gave you a bone, you're going to open it up again. You're asking me for all this evidence, and you won't give me Any.
Mark, you're just hammering on about that. We've addressed that already. I've already explained to you that I can't tell you how many kinds God created in the beginning any more than you can tell me how many varieties of ape there were. In your imaginary 9 million years ago, you can't tell me, and neither can I. What we can show, though, what it can show is that horizontal change is a fact, and we have zero evidence of vertical change. That's what I know. And we also know this: vertical inheritance is established as a biological fact, and the reason evolutionists like yourself and even scientists is because you won't get a nickel for it, and the reason for it is because it points to special creation. So my question for you is this: uh, this is called it's also cortical inheritance is also called directed assembly or cytotaxis. And what it means is this: the structures in the cell are not created, they're not generated by genetic information. Nobody ever sees a cell come into being. That never happens. Cells become new. We get more cells when a cell split. All the features in the cell, the organelles split, and the cell becomes two. But cells do not develop their structures. The structural design of the cortex of the cell, the membrane and its features, and the organelles in the cell are not developed. They don't start out as some little inkling thing and grow and come into being. They don't evolve. They don't develop like a human or embryo develops in its mother's womb. That never happens in the cell. We get more cells by splitting. So the problem for you evolutionists is this. This means that there was two chickens in the beginning and they had a chicken tortoise. There was two human beings had a human tortoise. You got your sperm cell and egg cell. You got your cells because your mother and father had human cells, and they produced one, and that one split into two, into four, into eight, into 16, 32, 124, etc., like that. And that's how you got your cells, and that's what happens for every living thing in the world. This is called cortical inheritance. It's also called cytotaxis or directed assembly. Now, if evolution were true, that can't be true, because if the cell's features don't you've come into being but they're only passed on by duplication, by splitting rather, that means there was originally two chicken cells, and all chickens have chicken cells because there was two chickens. And the same is true for every kind of life. This means evolution is scientifically impossible. If the features of the cell don't come into being but only split every time a cell splits, there is never an evolution process to be had. Hope you'll think about that. Okay, but I'm just, the biodiversity that we have in this world is obviously a product of adaptation, horizontal change. That's a fact. It happens to 150 breeds of dog from two dogs, and the same is true for lemurs, or the same is true for llamas and camels and kangaroos and everything else that in sea scorpions. That's what happens. But the vertical change that evolutionists believe in, you can't give us the faith. Where's your Bible? Where is your religious Bible that shows that you can turn to page 1124 and show me the fossils that show that one type of living thing transitioned into another? Because if you don't have the evidence, see, here's
All right.
Mark,
Well,
you believe in
we've just
really
just for the sake of a conversation, Neff. So sorry, but it's just that I want to
yeah,
give Mark a chance to respond too.
yeah,
Oh
please do.
boy, Nephi, I don't want you to leave this debate. I really don't, because I'm enjoying this, and I just watched you talk yourself into a circle. I can actually tell that you're a fairly knowledgeable guy, and your brain chemistry works pretty quick, because I just watched you talk yourself into a circle there. You just told me that cells can only divide into cells of the same kind. And then you realized while you were saying it, oh no, we've got a sperm and we got an egg cell, and they're dividing 1 to 2 to 4 to 8 to, yeah, everybody knows how to count by doubles. You just that's it. There's my evidence. You're completely wrong. Now then you want to put that over to, well, then evolution does not exist because we don't see a chicken cell turn into a what cell, Nephi? You've got to explain yourself. And I would suggest you keep them shorter, because you really do start talking yourself into a circle there. Yes, that's exactly how cells divide. That is exactly what we see. When a cell divides, when else do we see it, Nephi, except in the embryonic stage of a embryo turning into the animal that it is going to become. Yes, we see cells replenish themselves as that cell, but that cell has already got its DNA instructions to reproduce. That heart tissue cell, that lung tissue cell. Yes, cells will follow instruction, DNA instruction, and they will divide and they will make a dog. They will make a human. I am really confused on where you're going here. Your talk, sometimes I just can't follow it, but I'm going to give you, I will talk way less, let you you go on your talk here.
Okay, well, I'm still waiting for this evidence you say exists in mountains and droves, and the papers could be stacked to the moon. We're not. By the way, that was a straw man. See, I recognize it. That was a jokey straw man, not a serious one. Okay, so, but we just don't have the evidence of it, Mark. That's all. You're welcome to believe in vertical change. We have the evidence of it. What we observe is horizontal change. We don't observe vertical change. The living plan, the body plans of the anatomies of the various living things in this world don't show transition. They don't show anatomical features, structural designs arising in their body plans incrementally. We don't have a genetic mechanism for it. Now, the topic of this debate, as it was presented to me, was Noah's flood and the biodiversity. But James made the topic of the debate when it started. So, but I want to talk about the flood of Noah just a little bit
Yeah,
because,
let's do that. I'm happy
okay,
with that. I
okay.
think I won all
So,
those hands. So
uh,
let's move on to Noah's Ark. I'll give you a chance there, because I don't know much about Noah's Ark.
okay.
I don't know much about I don't know much about the magical world. So I think you might get me here, Neffy.
Okay. Well, I'm going to talk about the geological evidence of the flood of Noah. There's historical evidence of it, but I'm going to talk about the geological evidence. This is a feature of the Earth. The Earth is covered, the continents are covered with an average. Now, this is an average, okay? And the Canadian Shield, there's virtually none in some places. In other places, it's 6 miles deep. But the continents are average, depending on the scientist you speak to, covered with an average of 1,800 to 2,500 or more meters of sedimentary strata laid down by water, which contain billions of rapidly buried creatures that have been mineralized and become fossils. Okay, so their bodies have been replaced, their tissues replaced with calcium carbonate and such, and now they're fossils. Okay, so these strata, the deep strata that cover the continents of the Earth, have some distinct features that can only be produced by moving water. One of them is the clear, fine, distinct boundaries from one to the other. It's as though if you look at the side of the Grand Canyon, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Layers have clear, distinct boundaries. Sometimes they're paper thin, where one boundary one strata ends and the next one begins. A different color because it has a different composition of minerals in it. So, and they possess something called particle size distribution. That is, the grains at the bottom, not all strata, but the preponderance of strata have particle size distribution, which means the grains of material at the bottom of them is greater and they get finer towards the top of that strata. And then at the next strata, right above it, paper thin boundary between it, the very next one has largest grains at the bottom moving to finer ones at the top. Now, this is produced by a process called leading edge grain distribution, where the water is moving horizontally and the large particles fall quickly and the smaller ones stay waterborne longer and settle out later, and so the grains get smaller to larger going vertically within each strata. Now, this is something that can only be produced by moving water. Secular geologists have verified this with fluke experiments in the laboratory. They acknowledge that strata are produced by water, moving water, not stagnant. So, where's the millions of years? If there's a clear, distinct boundary between each strata, there is no time in between them. But you guys believe in millions of years. Now, if one material becomes available to the environment over time and another type became more available, we should see, instead of clear distinct completely different strata with a different composition begins immediately above that would not exist. What we would see is a gradation from one strata of material into another as the environment changed the availability of the materials to make the strata. So my question to you is this: if the flood of Noah is not true, why do all these sedimentary strata in the geologic column, no matter how deep you dig, have these fine distinct boundaries one to another instead of gradiate from one to another, which they would do over time? Can you explain that to me?
Oh, absolutely, Nephi. If I had any idea that the young Earth creationists case is this week, I would have taken this on years and years ago. Okay, so let's talk about Noah's flood. What did it last for? 1 year? Because I did want a conversation. I didn't want these speeches. What did we have? 1 year?
Yes, about a year.
Okay, so we got a year. Where's all this water transfer, Nephi? We've got what do we got? 27,000 feet of water. Where's all this water transferring? Why are we ending up with layers? Hold on. Why are we ending up with layers of sand, and then we end up with layers of limestone, and then we end up with another layer of sandstone, and then we get some granite on top? Why up here in Canada, when I go 200 miles north, why is it all I see is granite? Why isn't this a uniform layer of everything? Clay, sand, rocks, everything just mixed together in a mess. Why don't I see that? I see very smooth layers that show me time, that show me at one point it was a lake bottom. At one time, it was a plain. At one time, it was something else, and it was covered up. Where did the Sahara Desert come from, Nephi? In your view, how do we have pure, clear sand in the Sahara Desert? Take it away.
Okay, so Mark, but you're in more than one evolutionist pit, it seems. Yeah, I showed you one about the flood, about the ark, but here's another. It never ceases to surprise me how many evolutionists refuse to study what the creationists have to say about the mechanisms of the flood, and apparently you haven't done your homework on it either, because you're asking questions that you shouldn't have to ask if you understood the flood model. You don't understand it at all. You're asking questions like they're so this. It's where does the water go?
Nephi, did you
Are you
hear me
kidding
ask
me?
where the water went?
How do you get a strata? Where does the water go? These kinds of questions. I mean, come on. Look, moving water creates strata. It's observed, tested, repeated in laboratory. Okay, so why do you have?
Let me talk.
Well, I mean, it's my turn to talk. You just.
I would like to keep them short. So all I'm going to say to you one more time, Nephi, is where did the clear sand? Where did the clear sands of the Sahara Desert come from?
Well,
oh, good Lord, I think we've lost them.
The Sahara Desert is not. It's not sandstone, you know, so it's something that was produced after the flood, not during it. Now, if you want fossil sand, so to speak, fossil sand, sandstone, we can go to the Coconino, Navajo, and the Permian Mixa sandstone formations, which cover thousands upon thousands of square miles, and these are produced. You understand, sandstone requires mineralized water. Sand does not turn into stone without water minerals, right, to bind the grains together. So the desert is not sandstone, so it's not something produced by the flood. That shouldn't be hard to understand, right? So but the geologic column, if there was evidence that it was produced over millions of years, the strata would merge one to another. They would gradiate instead of having fine distinct boundaries. Why is it that they have these fine distinct boundaries? Can you explain that to us?
Why do they have fine, distinct boundaries over time compared to a cauldron of water laid down in 1 year? Nephi, what are you talking about? How could you possibly think that the chalk that we see could lay down, that this clean sand that we see could lay down, that the granite could lay down, that we could get into things like limestone could lay down in this 1 year cauldron of hell where we've got the earth splitting open at the seams? Obviously, this makes sense. When you have an estuary, when you have a swamp, you get fine silty particles settling out over time, and you get this nice clean layer. Then something changes over time. The weather in that area changes. Something just happened with my screen here. Wow. I think that's Nephi doing something. Anyways, I don't have that technology. I just turn my computer on and talk into it. I don't see where we see this. When my wife makes a stew and she starts stirring it up, it doesn't settle out into these nice, smooth layers, Nephi.
Okay, so let's talk about that. You're lacking some knowledge about stratification and lamination. What you're looking at here is a secular experiment produced by a hydrologist in the laboratory, and you can see the stratification right before your eyes. You see that? Okay, so look at the. You can even see bedding occur. You see the angles of bedding, and right above it, lo and behold, horizontal layers with clear, distinct boundaries right between them. Boom. This is produced in the lab by moving water. So now this is typical of the geologic column right here, what we have right here. Fine, distinct boundaries from one strata to the other. No gradation. When materials don't blend from one into the other, there are a limited number of strata in which that occurs. Very limited. Almost all of the geologic strata of the Earth have fine, distinct boundaries. Look how fine the boundary between these strata. Unbelievable.
You just close that door.
Okay, so the problem for you, look how fine the boundary between these strata. Look, one abruptly ends and the other begins. The difference between them is paper thin. This means there is no geologic time between them. I'm trying to help you understand lamination and stratification tonight. If these strata were laid down over vast ages of time, why does one not merge slowly into the other? That's the problem for you. This is exactly what we see produced in the laboratory. When water is moving rapidly and deposits materials, it creates strata. This is exactly what we find throughout the entire geologic column, going a mile deep across the continents.
We'll go.
Okay,
Well,
so
just soon if we can give Mark a chance to respond to.
yeah, please do. Explain that with uniformitarianism, Mark.
Wow, Nephi, I'm really sorry if this is the best evidence that you got. And actually, James, I know that you're a man of faith. I really hope you're going to be able to pull something together for me a little bit better than this. Because why would we expect a fine layer? Why wouldn't we expect a fine layer? Why would we not expect it to be smooth? We see it all around the world right now, Nephi. Things change, weather changes, patterns change. I don't understand why we would not see a nice, clean layering of all the different rocks, all the different sands, all the different fine settlements. Like Nephi, you've still got to even just tell me, where did the sand come from in Noah's? In the Sahara, all throughout the Midwest of the United States. Where did the sand come from? Why did it all pack itself into a nice, neat little area? When you've got this vision, this hellish vision of the earth splitting open under the sea and all this water rushing to the top, we would not see what you are talking about. And I really hope that your followers don't believe this. You need stronger evidence, Nephi. You really do. It's so much not what we would see. I don't know what you're asking me for. Why would we expect a smooth layer? It's exactly what we'd expect. We would expect a strata to lay down. We would expect it to harden over years as new strata comes on top. We're seeing it right now. We're seeing the Sahara Desert grow. What do you think's happening as that sand is laying itself on top of the topsoil that is to the north and the south? The sand is blowing onto the topsoil, and over the years, they will become very distinct, quick changes from topsoil forested areas into sandy areas. It's so obvious, Nephi. I just need you to explain how a cauldron of hell turns into nice, neat layers.
Well, I've already explained that. Mark,
Did you?
Well,
Mark, yeah, I did.
I'm going to give Neff a chance to respond, but I just want to let everybody know we'll go to Q&A pretty quick. And if you have a super chat, they go to the top of the list. I forgot to mention that. Sorry. It also gives you a chance to make a comment toward one of the speakers during the Q&A. Of course, they would get to respond to that. And then also, I have not seen the link yet, but I'm sure it's coming into the chat soon, where Steve McRae and John are offering to host a post-debate show. So that is something that the link should be in the live chat any moment, and we're kind of like, hey, yeah, like they invited both Mark and Neff, so I hope it's an enjoyable time. I can't. I'm like dead tired, so I've got to like sleep after this.
Steve's my buddy. He's taught me lots of things. I followed Steve. He's a good man.
He's been very good to us. He's definitely blessed us abundantly in terms of in a lot of different ways. So we enjoy, as he likes to be called, Big Papa Steve. You know. So, but Neff, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I want to give you a chance to respond.
Mark, I've already been over this for you. Here's the chalk that you're talking about. I don't know if you can see this. I don't think it's screen sharing.
Okay, I'm switching it over now.
Oh, okay.
So now we can see it.
Okay, so there's chalk for you, and you see the boundary between the chalk and the material below it? Paper thin. Okay, paper thin boundary. That doesn't happen over time. If one material became less available to the environment over time, over vast, many mega thousands of years, and another became less available, the materials would gradiate. It would gradiate from one into the other. But instead, this is what we see throughout the entire geologic column. Now, we also find dinosaur fossils have been found, and highly articulated fossils of crustaceans and fish in chalk. Now, people like yourself, uniformitarians, believe chalk forms at a rate of 1 inch to 1.5 maybe centimeters over a period of every 1,000 years on the ocean floors. If that were true, there could be no fossil in it, and you surely wouldn't find a dinosaur fossil in it. So how in the world do we have, if this material was laid down over a vast age of time, why are there articulated fossils of crustaceans, fish, and even dinosaurs in chalk? I mean, it would be impossible, because you're not going to get a dinosaur or a catfish to be covered by chalk at a rate of 1 to 2 centimeters per 1,000 years, and the fossil exists. You see, it would be devoured before it hit the ocean floor. It would be gone, much less lay there waiting for 7,000 years for it to slowly be covered with enough material that all of its bones would be buried with enough compacted material, squeeze the water out, that it becomes a fossil. It's impossible. These creatures were buried in chalk rapidly, which means countless trillions of coccolithophores died because of the flood of Noah, the change in the temperature in the ocean, like that. And they just sank. And when they did, they buried all kinds of creatures and made fossils out of them. See, these things support me. They don't support your views. Your views just can't be found in geology. It's not possible.
We're gonna, with that, go to Q&A.
Oh, you're gonna let me answer, James?
Actually, that's actually a good point. Neff started, so having been the affirmative, we'll give Mark a chance to respond and have the last word, because that sounds fair, given that Neff started. Yep. We'll have Mark have the last word.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mark.
So for instance, everyone heard Neffy ask me to show him the reams of paper that we have for peer-reviewed fossilization, peer-reviewed movement from species to species, peer-reviewed. We got reams, and we have football fields full of these buildings, full of this stuff, full of core samples out of the ocean, full of ice samples out of the north. And son, I've heard a lot of debates. Let me clear one thing up here about these ice layers too. Ice layers are proven to be yearly by the what do you call that crap that comes out of plants, son? Come on, come on, James, help me here.
Tree sap?
No, not tree sap, James. The pollen. Come on, you should have known that. We have pollen layers every year. And then the beauty of pollen layers is we can check them genetically, and we can see that they are, yes, year after year after year after year. And every time I hear a debate, it's like, come on, people. We know they're layers by the pollen layers. That's all we need is the pollen layers. The same thing when we check our ocean floor layers, and we go back 750 million years, we have yearly pollen layers. Plants go through a yearly cycle of reproduction, and it lays down years. And that is something that's been left out of the argument continually, and it's driven me crazy. And that's what's brought me to this channel. So let's go back to Neph's idea here. On one hand, he will try to make us think that the world was covered in this hellish cauldron of water that's coming out from, I don't know what his claim is, how far down into the Earth's crust this water's coming from, but we got to raise the water temperature of temperature under the crust of about 25 degrees Celsius for every kilometer we go down. Keep that in mind in the future, Nephi, because this water you're pumping into the ocean is very hot. Ken Hovind's model would bring it up to about 400 degrees Celsius. So we've got some pretty hot water coming out of that mid-Atlantic ridge. Another problem with that I'm going to point out in case you ever debate me again, or Ken Hovind does, when you drop the ocean floor, guess what? It's called displacement. You drop the ocean floor down 10 kilometers and replace it with 10 kilometers of water, you don't get any extra water height to cover mountains. All you do is you have a deeper ocean floor. But at any rate, I see James getting upset with me there. No, we would not get smooth, clear chalk layers with this water rushing around the earth. And then we wouldn't get nice, clean sand of the Sahara Desert, which is broken down rocks. We would not get this, guys. So I don't care what your religion is. I'm okay with you having a God. I have a wife over here, wife. This girl here is a young earth creationist. That's what she was raised as. And you know something? I'm good with that. It's just don't make up things. Come on, we're in 2020 almost. Let's call. And Nephi had a long opening statement, but I'm interested to get to question period. And I really don't mind if Nephi comes back with a couple minutes response. I really want to be fair to him, and I want to debate him again. I really would like to.
I think, Neph, forgive me if I know you've got a round in the chamber ready to go, Neph, I'm sure. But if you can, Neph, if you're willing, I'd be willing to host you guys again.
Yeah.
Or if you guys wanted to carry on Steve's channel, that's an option. And I would basically just, if it's okay, if we go to Q&A, I don't mean to shortchange you, Neff. If you do want like a minute or two, I can set a timer and give you, as Mark said, he'd be okay with it. But otherwise, I kind of do want to get to Q&A, and we could maybe save it for the next possible discussion.
James, if you can just let me say that I'm extremely computer illiterate. My wife does everything. I'd love to join Steve McRae. Just make sure he lets me know here in the live comments how to get to the live chat, and we'll go on, and hopefully Nephi will join me over there and we can continue on.
Well, Marky, I don't go to Steve's Hangouts because I've had several engagements with him over the years, and whenever somebody like myself enters one of his Hangouts, all that ever happens is you get continuously and endlessly talked over before you get the third sentence out of your mouth, and then you get your mic is muted. And so there's no honest discussion that goes on in Hangouts with Steve McRae and people like him. And that's why my challenge to debate him in a structured debate has been open for about 4 years, and he won't take it because he can't play with the mute button on you and endlessly talk over you, and he doesn't want to do it. And so that's why I won't enter his Hangouts, because we know the end result. You get to say 6 words and then you're muted or talked over, and that's not a discussion. You and I can do better than that. We have done better than that. Steve can't do that, so we don't go there.
I think
so. Let's do some question and answers.
Just because I think I accidentally might have accidentally misrepresented. I think it's John. John's hosting the Hangout, and so it's like the Great Debate Community, if I'm understanding it right. I haven't opened the link yet. Sorry about that, John. I'm multitasking here, and I'm frankly usually scattered as it is. It's over at the Great Debate Community. So we will go into the Q&A, and hopefully each of you felt like you had a fair share of time in order to kind of make the case. And I'm trying my best. Karag Nightwolf said I maybe leaned too much toward the evolution side. And I'm sorry if I've done that. That's not what I've been trying to do. So I do really want to try to call it right down the middle. And it's honestly like So
I
Neff,
feel like you were busting my balls all night, James. So I'll side with you on that one.
I appreciate it. So we with that, we'll go into the Q&A. It sounds like everybody's okay with that. Stephen Steen, thanks for your super chat. You sick man. He says, watch James every night. Yes, please. Okay, that's sick, Steve. Roy Lindsay, thanks for your super chat. He said, stop saying, quote, evolutionist. I think this might be for you, Neff. Do you have like anything you want to say in response?
Well, I mean, then maybe they should stop calling people creationists, right? I don't know if they could give that habit up, though.
Gotcha.
By the way, then I guess we should toss out the words Marxist, communist, fascist, artist, and maybe 1,100 other words.
Gotcha. Well, thank you very much. Tatted Philosophy sends a super chat. He says, ask Neff how the moon got its bumps. And he says this question has to do with the flood in particular. Maybe you're able to connect the dots better than I am.
Bumps? I'm not sure what they're even talking about.
I'm not sure if they mean...
Are they talking about craters?
Crater. I think they might mean craters.
Well, I think during the creation event, there was a massive amount of material flying around and things got bombarded. That seems pretty obvious. That's, I think, where the majority of bombardment took place was during the creation event.
Gotcha.
Come on, James, let me at least get in 2 minutes on each one. No, give me 20 seconds because they're all going to be for Nephi.
Yeah,
absolutely fine. Impossible. We need about 30,000 kilometers per hour for escape velocity. Impossible, Nephi. Not a chance.
Well, you haven't given a reason that would be impossible if material's flying around. Just because I say it took place during the creation event, and you think it took place over billions, 1.5 billion years, that's not an argument.
The problem is I'm an engineer, and I just know the conservation of energy, and I know that it's impossible for us to shoot water through the air at 30 times the speed of sound. We would make airplanes out of water if they could handle traveling through our atmosphere at 30 times the speed of sound. We can't even get aluminum to do it. We can't get titanium to do it, let alone water.
Mark, are you aware that NASA says that there is megatons of rocks from the Earth on the moon? Did you know that?
Of course there is. We had two planets that collided with each other and made our moon.
Well, there comes your stories. I mean, you're welcome to believe these stories.
We're going to redebate that one because I have tons of evidence for that. Boy, I got a feeling that I've just watched way too many debates online because I just seem to know these arguments
Mark,
too well.
Are you aware that
impossible. You could not send water through our atmosphere at that speed. It would come out of the mid-Atlantic ridge. It would hit our atmosphere and it would explode.
Mark, are you aware of the fact that
the speed of sound?
Mark, are you aware of the fact that in 2010, NASA published a white paper saying that the formation of the planets, they has no working model? None of their theories work?
Well, just because we don't have a theory for something doesn't mean that we're going to eject water through our atmosphere.
All I'm pointing out is that your physical mechanism.
Oh, you're cutting me off, Nephi. You can't push water through our atmosphere at 30 times the speed of sound.
Okay.
It would explode when it hit our atmosphere. It would hit our atmosphere and it would view our atmosphere like concrete.
Well, maybe not if it's a superfluid, and that's what would happen to water.
What is a superfluid? Good God, we got another debate.
Look it up in Wikipedia or something.
Well, I know what it is. I know what it is, Kent. Sorry, this sounds a lot like Kent. Nephi, you can't just do that. I make machinery, and my machinery has to work in the real world. I can't deliver it to my customer and say, yes, my machine would work, providing that we change the atmosphere, we change the density of the atmosphere, we change the density or the percentage of oxygen. Shit has to work, Nephi. You can't just say things, and we can't push water through the air at 30 times the speed of sound.
Mark, all I'm pointing out is that you say my model for the formation of the planets doesn't work, but NASA admits their models don't work either. So I'm sorry, this is very much like, and yet you claim it's true that it does. This is very much like your claims about the fossil record and everything else. Oh, it happened. We've got reams of evidence of it, but when asked, you can't provide it. and neither can NASA provide a model that works in
Well,
a supercomputer for the
the funny
formation.
thing
Now
is,
you're
I'm going to
cutting
go
me
back.
off, Marky. You're cutting me off, Marky. Okay.
Okay.
So,
Let me know when you're done. All I'm going to tell you is
Marky, neither does NASA have a model, and it works in any supercomputer that shows how any of the planets could work that form. See, so you guys don't have a model for them forming, but you're going to tell us it's a science fact. It happened this way when the computers can't even simulate it. So I'm sorry, that's just not how science works. It doesn't work like this, Mark. Science doesn't work like this. I believe a thing, therefore it's a science fact. That's not how science works.
We're going to jump back into the Q&A.
No, give me 2 seconds.
Go ahead. We'll give you a
Come on, James. You can't leave me hanging on that.
We'll give you
Nephi.
Well, I mean, okay, so hold on one second, guys. Just because Neff is going to want to respond too, like
I know.
So we'll give you a really quick one, and then because it's true that Neff is getting all the kind of, you could say, the last word in the Q&A sense.
I know.
So we'll give you a quick response, Mark, and then we got to jump back to the next questions.
If I was to bring the reams of evidence for evolution into my house, my wife would punch me in the balls, Nephi. We don't have the room for it.
We'll bring some of it in. Bring a paper or 3.
One sec. Right. We want to jump into the... Thanks so much for your patience. Eddie, let's see. Larry Letts said, why do they bother putting the dodo on the ark? Thanks for your question in Super Chat, Larry.
You cut out. Sorry, James, you cut out. You're going to have to
okay.
redo that.
Okay. Larry Letts, thanks for your Super Chat. And this is a question for Neff. Coming at you, Neff, full speed. Why did they bother putting the dodo on the ark? How do you like them apples, Neff?
Well, the same reason I guess God had in all of the kinds on the ark. I'm not sure what the purpose of the question is. Creatures, the fossils of this world show that creatures either haven't changed in any way that could be considered vertical evolution, or they're extinct. That's all there is. So the creature went extinct. Going extinct is an evidence that it came into being by some kind of evolutionary process. It's just extinct. That's all.
10 seconds. Nephi, we have lemurs out there that were 8 feet tall. We have sloths that were 10 feet tall. We have praying mantises. We have I shouldn't have drank so many of these real Canadian beers, but we have so many insects that grew to 10 feet long, absolutely huge. Is that not horizontal gene transfer? What the hell do you call it? They're 10 feet tall.
That's morphology, not anatomy. That's evidence of the flood. The environment was somehow radically better before the flood than it is today. We have camels twice the size of camels too in the fossil record. In fact, megafauna species are abundant in the fossil record. That's evidence that the creatures had a better environment. That's not evidence of change. That's not, look, the morphology has to change. The anatomy has to change. Okay. Let me help you understand a simple concept. Okay. Bigger is not transitional. Bigger is not anatomical. Can you understand it? I can put side by side for you a human being that is 3 foot 4 inches and somebody who's 7 foot 2 inches. And guess what? There's no anatomical difference. Size is not evidence of anatomical change, Marky. Okay.
Wow, Nephi, you're just so wrong that it's actually mind-boggling to just think about it, because you have these 8 foot tall lemurs in the same strata that you told me got laid down in the flood of Noah. So it all existed at the same time. It's horizontal gene transfer, Nephi. You can't have it both ways.
Horizontal gene transfer is not a mechanism for vertical change.
So when did we go from 8 foot tall lemurs to 2 foot tall?
Since when is there a difference in anatomy between the 8 foot one and the 2 foot one? Start showing.
Are you telling me they existed at the same time, Nephi?
I'm telling you that size is not anatomical. Do you understand that concept?
Yes, but it's in the same strata that you told me got laid down at all the same time.
Excellent. You understand that anatomy and size are not the same thing. good.
I feel sorry for you tonight, Nephi. I really do. I really hope that you can lick wounds and come back and take me on again. But you've got some real holes in your argument here. You've got 8-foot tall lemurs. You've got 1.5 foot tall lemurs. And you're telling everybody on this channel that they all got laid down in all those layers of strata during Noah's Ark at the same time. And then out of the other side of your mouth, you're telling me there's no such thing as horizontal gene transfer.
Mark,
and yet they are the same lemur.
Mark, we've got 2 foot, we got 6-inch tall dogs and 4-foot tall dogs today. Is there an anatomical difference between them?
Absolutely. We bred them
what is that
way over the last 10,000 years now.
What anatomical
Take it away,
difference
James.
What anatomical difference is there between a Chihuahua and a Great Dane?
We one challenge, Neff, is that like if we ask questions where it's going to inevitably it like requires a response, and so it's like if you want to make a pithy response to Mark, that's not a question, because otherwise the question just keeps the conversation going.
Exactly.
But I do want to give you,
my liver can only take so much drinking tonight.
I want to give you the last word in some of these, Neff, because it is, in a way, it's also even though Neff is getting the last word on a lot of these super chats, like he hears the super chat, then he responds to it. It's at the same time, it is continual, like you could say, attacks, intellectual attacks on Neff. And
I love Nephi. I don't want to attack him. I want to keep him going. I want him to leave this with a heartbeat. I want to take him on again. So go ahead, Nephi, and then let's do the next question. We got lots of them.
I don't mean attacks in a bad way. I just, you could say like critiques or arguments against. That's all I mean by it.
Exactly.
And so I just want to be sure that Neff has a chance to kind of make his case as well. So if you want to have a quick, pithy response that's ideally not a question, Neff, and then we'll go to the next question.
Well, I think I would just point out that I find it bizarre that people like that Mark seem to struggle with understanding or acknowledging, rather, that morphology and anatomy are not the same thing. You know, that bigger doesn't mean different kind. You know, that's just ridiculous. I mean, we have all kinds of creatures that are small, and we have the same kind of creature, and it's bigger. And there's just no anatomical difference between the two. And that's not evidence of evolution. If you're going to talk about vertical evolution being a fact, you need to show vertical change being a fact. You can't point to something that's a little bigger than another one and say, because if we applied this ridiculous idea to the things that live on this planet today, then we would have to say that a 3.5 foot man is evolved into the 7-foot man. And even evolutionists wouldn't go there.
No, you're right. You're right, Neff. Yeah, I'm going to concede on this, and I'm going to say you're absolutely right. I am an 8.
Gotcha. Thank you. 1 second. I want to make sure that I didn't miss one. I was like, did I miss? I was like, I could have sworn. Oh, there it is. Jay Shy, thanks so much for your super chat. They said there are kinds within kinds. For example, a Great Dane came from non-Great Dane, but will always produce Dane. You can't outgrow your ancestry, but can grow into new ones. We are all eukaryotic related kinds. My guess is that's for you, Neff.
The same problem that Mark is having, varieties of an organism is not evidence of transition from one type of living thing into another, a fundamentally different type of organism. Pointing to 2 breeds of dog is only showing horizontal gene transfer, genetic drift is all it is. It's not horizontal gene transfer even. That's genetic drift, changes to allele frequency, which causes genetic genes to be turned off. The way you get smaller and more defunct organisms, like miniature deer and horses and dogs, is by turning off genes that tell the organism to get big. You study the anatomy of the animal, cut him in half, study his anatomy with a microscope. There's no anatomical difference between the two. And that's what evolution claims takes place. Without anatomical evolution change, evolution would never happen. You can't get all the varieties of living things in this world by changing the size, color, shape, or pattern of the thing. It has to be vertical evolution. This is what evolutionists can't point to. And so they say, look, it's bigger. It's bigger.
We can definitely... I hate to cut in just to make sure we try to fly through as many more questions.
That's great. I'm done.
We could definitely, we would love to have you guys come back on anytime. Subtracted, thanks for your super chat. They said, how did Noah get the 1 trillion species of bacteria on the ark?
Well, since you can fit countless bacteria on the head of a pin, I don't see a problem with that. And now, with again, here's the problem though. Speciation, what evolutionists call speciation when it comes to bacteria, doesn't create the structural design. It's no different than with dogs, with lemurs, or any other kind of, or apes. This is not horizontal. This is not vertical evolution. When we see in Linsky's experiments conducted for over 40 years demonstrates this. We don't see structural design change occurring in the bacteria. That's therefore there's no evolution of them. Because what evolutionists will claim is if there's a slight difference in one bacteria and another, such the shape of the bacteria is either oblong or it's round, they'll declare it a new species and they'll say, look, new species, speciation. Well, there are probably quite many varieties of bacteria that have arisen in the last 5,000 years, 4,000 years, but there's no evidence of structural design change arising in the anatomy of bacteria. That's what you would have to show. So varieties of bacteria, what the evolutionist calls speciation of bacteria, is not a problem for creation. It's a problem for evolutionists.
Gotcha.
Oh, please,
One
please,
thing-
please let me say something here.
I'll give
Come
you.
on,
I'll
I'm
give.
going to get a laugh
yeah.
out of this.
I'm going to give you a
All
chance.
those-
Mark, hold on one
Those
second.
poor,
Just so I don't. If it can be a pithy one, I'll let you speak right now. Otherwise, I wanted to make a quick little announcement. But depending on
Let
how
me do
long it is,
this.
go ahead.
I feel really sorry for those 4 women that carried all of those sexually transmitted diseases onto that ark with them, because those poor men, when they come out, they must have had some serious itching, because there's no such thing as horizontal gene transfer, which means all those venereal sexually transmitted diseases that are only in humans and some apes all went on with those poor 4 women. And what did we have? 4 men. That must have been a really itchy time without any special creams for back in the day.
We're going
Bacteria
to...
turning on their host is just genetic change.
That's not bacteria. Sorry, nephew. There's a
We're
lot
gonna-
more
Viruses too.
transmitted diseases.
Viruses too.
We're going to come back to the questions and answers. I do have some. I want to address this as you could say a public service announcement, because I get it fairly often, whether it be via email or comments or right now in the live chat, where sometimes it's like, hey, the moderators of the channel are expressing their strong opinions, whether that be Christian or atheist, and that's totally okay. Like the mods, that's always been the way it's always been. We want the mods to be able to still engage in the conversation, make an argument. Now, we'd rather not, I have removed a wrench before because somebody, sorry, I don't mean to laugh. I think she was maybe, whatever the reason was. One time, one of our mods was abusive. I took the wrench away from her. So it's like, I don't want them to be abusive. Like, that's fair. But I do want to mention, too, because it's been, I think, getting better. But sometimes people do report comments. And by that, I mean, after the video posts, we get comments on the videos, and it's fun. People have great conversations. I really enjoy kind of trying to sift through. But we sometimes do seem to have, I've gotten emails from people where it's like, hey, I made fun of Kent Hovind's Hawaiian shirt, and my comment is gone now. And it's like, I know that they're not being deleted by mods because I can see that on my creator, the creator studio. So I know that it's the only other way is that they're just being reported. And it's not just people who make fun of Kent Hovind's shirt. Sometimes it's like Christians who are saying my comments are also getting reported. So it goes on both sides. I'm not trying to say any side does it more. That's not my point. But just want to encourage you guys. We appreciate that 99.9% of you are always a pleasure and working to cooperate with each other. And some of you, it's kind of like, well, I honestly, the more people that are here, it's just there's always going to be somebody who's not happy. But let's see. So thanks for your patience, speakers. I know that was a little bit unrelated. But what we will do is, I love the personal attacks, by the way. And it doesn't bother me. Honestly, it doesn't bother me. I figure it's hey, any publicity is good publicity. If someone calls me a coward, I've seen it before. She's like, I'm the moderator. And I still I still get criticized as a moderator. But it doesn't bother me. Believe me, I've got thick skin. I've been in sports. I've been in the internet for a while, but it's just like I'm intrigued by it. I'm like, you really thought that was going to persuade me to like come to your view, like if you name call? Okay. Well, anyway, with that, we are glad to have you here. Even if you're angry and you're calling me names, I'm still glad you're here. We need an eclectic community. We don't want an echo chamber, so we do need our critics. But want to just let you know, it's like I'm trying to balance all these things. So, last question, Brian Stevens. Thanks for your. He just says beta. Okay, thanks for that. And Jay Shy has a question for Neph. What is a kind, Neph? And are there kinds within kinds?
Okay, it's technically impossible to define a kind, at least at this time, and scientifically, just as it is impossible for evolutionists to define species at this time. Evolutionist biologists acknowledge that to define a species is difficult to impossible. Evolutionists will sometimes say it's called the species problem. You can look it up on the internet and you'll find references in science papers to the species problem. So evolutionists are incapable of defining a species, and likewise creationists are incapable of exactly defining a baramin. But that's neither an argument for evolution or creation, because defining what original kinds existed in the past and getting it down to a T, where we can know exactly. Evolutionists are not able to do the same for what they call species, is an argument against evolution change. But horizontal change is not what evolutionists claim. They claim vertical change occurs, for which we have no evidence.
So here's the difference with that one, James. Us evolutionists, we write up a paper, we send it out there. We don't argue. We don't stand around on the street and argue whether or not something's right or not. We write a paper, we present it for peer review, and then we stand back and our paper is either accepted or we get the shit kicked out of us and we find out, guess what? We're wrong. That is the same species. Your hypothesis failed and it remains the same species. That's the difference. We don't just make claims and say that this is this. We write up a paper and guess what? You better have something to back it or you're going to get the shit kicked out of you and it's not going to become the truth.
Gotcha. We do have, because I do want to like jump to a question for Mark, because poor Mark, I'm sorry you haven't really gotten the kind of the thrill of getting a mystery question thrown at you. I think that's part of what makes it fun.
James, I'm married. I get all kinds of mystery questions.
So I do want to, if you got time, I want to shoot one at Mark, and then because I think this might, this is like one of the. We do have a couple. So I do want to say too, forgive me guys, I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to preach. 99.9% of you are so helpful, and I love that you're just in every way supportive, and you've made this channel why it's fun. Like I love being here. I felt like I was coming back tonight. I was like, oh, this is fun. I haven't done this for like 5 days, and I was like, feels great to get to do it again. It's been crazy busy, but the thing I was gonna say is, like, I'm totally okay if you're like, if you want to report, you're like, hey, this cheesehead said, he said something totally unacceptable. You shouldn't have him as a mod, or maybe even you shouldn't even have him in the chat. Like if somebody's saying hate speech, I don't want him even in the chat. It's like, go ahead, mods, like, go after him. And the only trick is, like, sometimes if I get an email or something, or a Twitter message, DM, and like sometimes it's like I don't get the evidence for it. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be a super skeptic, but it is like once in a while there are people that I think pose as other people, because I like one time Shannon showed me a message where someone posted on someone's wall. I'm trying to not make it seem as if any side does this more than the other, because I don't think that's the case, but because I think it happens on both sides. But basically somebody posted, in this case on like Standing for Truth, they posted on Shannon's video like, hey, we're gonna have a celebration at Standing for Truth's channel tonight, celebrating the death of someone who passed away. And when I heard this, I was like, Standing for Truth has his imperfections, but he would not do that. I don't think he'd be like that. And then I also peeked over at his channel just to be sure, and he was doing the exact same thing he does almost every night, which is just like not trying to make fun of you standing for truth, like basically like restreaming Kent Hovind debates. And that's like so the point is he wasn't celebrating someone passing away. And so it's like sometimes I get reports and it's like it makes it so much easier on me if you have a screenshot or something, or video, you know, like the video content where somebody's saying something. And so hopefully you guys understand that as well. So okay. So anyway, not that it's wrong to like mention something to me. I don't want you to feel discouraged from saying like, hey, James, like this person is, you know, using, you know, they're calling somebody the FAG word or, you know, the N word or something. Like, I want you to let me know about that because we want to nip that in the bud. Anyway, first, last, thanks for your encouragement. We had one question that, Steve McCrae, he wants a piece of you, Neff. He sent in a super chat, and, you know, Steve's pretty cheap, so this is a big deal. So, Steve, I'm kidding. Nobody's cheaper than me, Steve. Okay, Steve McCrae, I love you, buddy. He says, is DNA composed of amino acids as monomers? So this is for Neff, and then we'll come back to that question that was for Mark. Sorry about that. But Neff, if you're here with us still, thanks for your patience. Is DNA comprised of amino acids as monomers?
Well, surely Steve doesn't think DNA is comprised of amino acids. It's base pairs down a sugar ribose backbone. I don't know why he would even ask that question. If he thinks that I think that DNA is comprised of amino acids, then I don't know what happened to him there. It'd be a pretty weird question.
Gotcha. Mark, thanks for your patience. We do have that question for you that we promised. Colin Smith, thanks for your question. I'm kind of pushing this up the pile because it's maybe like fourth one down. They said, how do animals evolve from outside pressures and forces during blind reproduction?
Well, what is blind reproduction? There's no such thing as blind reproduction. Reproduction is based on whatever there is left on Earth to reproduce with. I actually just watched a really interesting talk on how the Galapagos turtles evolved to get a space in their shell above their neck, so that they were able to reach higher and higher plant life. So the ones that can't reach the plant life, guess what? They die off. And I know people in the creationist side of things like to talk about how evolution is a belief of death. It's not. It's the talk of survival. It's the survival of the strongest. So it is so elementary to describe this that I'm surprised that anyone would ask it. Whoever gets to eat gets to live.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. And just because if you want a little bit more of action, a little more action, evolution, this is his name. Evolution is zombie science, so I'm not like asserting this. By the way, I've never heard that name before. I've seen you in the chat before, though. It's glad you're here, whether you be Christian, atheist, wherever you are, all the strange creatures in between. They ask, how many assumptions are there? And this is Mark. Are you willing to take questions on the biodiversity of life that we see today, like whether or not it can be explained for on an evolutionary theory? I think they're asking, like, Mark, are you willing to field a question on that? Because
absolutely.
Okay, so let me give it a spin. I haven't read it yet, but they ask, how many assumptions are there in the creation model?
Creation.
I don't know. I was like,
no idea.
Now you're confusing me. Evolution is zombie science. He said, okay, this is what they mean. So they say, how many assumptions are there in the creation model concerning the development of diversity compared to the evolutionary model concerning diversity?
Well, this is the thing, James. I think I've summed it up the best for everybody. I hate to think of myself now as a spokesman for this stuff, but it really comes down to whoever eats lives. Just think about that for a minute. Drive around in the the suburbs, look, when you get out of the cities, take a look at the trees, take a look at how high the deer eat. You will notice that when you look around at all of the trees, you'll notice that they're all cut to a certain height. They are the animals. The ones that can continue to eat higher are going to be the ones that are going to continue to eat. The ones that can continue to run faster, they are going to be the ones that are going to continue to eat. Guess what? If they can't run faster, then they better become stealthier. They better develop some coloring that allows them to hide better. It's really not that complicated. It really is down to who can survive the best, who can hide the best, who can run the fastest, who can reach the highest, who can figure out that way of getting food. It is food. It's eat or be eaten.
Can I get
Gotcha.
a pithy response?
If it's a super
Yeah.
pithy one.
Yep. Survival isn't evolutionary change, and survival of the fit is true if creation is true. That doesn't provide evidence of evolution. Survival is not a mechanism for evolution.
It's the only mechanism.
Doesn't cause structural design change.
Absolutely. Tall, breeding with tall will make tall.
Tall is not anatomical difference.
Sure it is, Nephi. If you have to reach up somewhere to eat something, it absolutely is.
Okay, so let it be known that he thinks that size is an anatomical feature.
Not at all. I have claimed that sometimes animals being shorter can hide in the grass, and that can give them an advantage where they can hide from predators. Nephi, do not strawman me. I never said that. I said those who eat survive, and those who don't get eaten survive. It is that simple.
Is there an evolutionary difference between a 2.5-foot man and a 6-foot man?
No, man has been taken out of the
Oh,
evolutionary.
okay. It's different for man. Yeah.
Why are you cutting me off? No, it's not different for man. We are animals. We are apes, but we have taken ourselves out of the evolutionary divergence. Are you telling me, Nephi, that if you were to take away your grocery store, that a fit marathon runner would be as successful as a Oprah watching, sitting on the couch, smoking a cigarette, bonbon eating human?
Survival isn't evidence of evolutionary change. You know, we can have a 3-foot deer, and you could have a 5-foot deer at the shoulder. And
exactly.
Right.
And so if that deer
size is not going to get you a new type of creature. You understand?
Absolutely wrong, Nephi. If that grass is 3 foot high or 3'5", guess what? The lion will not eat it.
Survival is not a mechanism for evolution. I'm sorry.
What are you talking about? I'm telling you, survival is evolution.
No, survival would be necessary for evolution. Survival is also necessary if creation is true. Creatures do survive. That doesn't provide evidence of creation or evolution, except we can show that they have not changed, which is what the fossils show in the living species. No evidence of change. That supports the creation model. But you're telling people that because an organism survives, it evolves. No, it would have to survive to evolve, but showing the size difference between creatures or survivability is not evidence of the change, that the organism came into existence from a whatever it is. That's just a blunder. That's Mark, can you not see what a blunder that is?
One second. I want to give, so since we let Neff start, I want to give Mark the last word, and then we got to close out.
You're being unfair towards me, James. I'm telling you, I'm upset with you. Yes, James, you are right. Here's the facts. If you don't survive, you cannot breed. If you cannot breed, you're done. If by chance you have to be short to live in your environment, you better be short. If you are going to stand 4 feet over top of the grass and you got a lion hunting you down, you're going to get eaten. If you're 6 inches lower than the grass, you're going to live. If you're going to live, you're going to breed with a female that's 6 inches below the grass. But it is not just height, Nephi. It could be color. It could be speed. It could be so many things. Your ability to climb a tree. There is no one finger that you can put on evolution. Evolution is the ability to survive. That's why we have flying animals. That's why we have animals that swim. That's why we have animals that climb trees. That's why we have animals that run fast. It is so elementary. It is scary that this is not understood.
Thanks so much, both of you. I hate to cut you off, Neff. Like I said, I know you got a round in the chamber ready to go, but we have to stop somewhere or we'll be here all night. So
I'm satisfied. Yeah.
thank you guys. It's been a true pleasure.